for the general nervousness and discomfort of the world towards companies like us and, the other people doing similar things, which is like, why is our future in their hands? And why are they doing this? Why do they get to do this? This is a technology that's clearly very powerful, and that we don't know, we cannot say with certainty exactly what's going to happen. And that's the case with all new major technological revolutions. But it's easy to imagine with this one that it's going to have like massive effects on the world, and that it could go very wrong.
He was preparing his company for military deals while telling the world he understood their fear, and all of this after admitting AI paralleled the risks of nuclear weaponry. Within days, OpenAI then announced its first partnership with DARPA. 2 years later, that huge Pentagon contract was signed at the first opportunity, with the title of the announcement reading "Our Agreement with the Department of War." And despite all of that, the contracts, the controversies, and billions pouring in, OpenAI still can't keep its own products alive. The Register called them a product assassin after killing off Sora. But the truth is they had no choice but to switch it off, as it was costing them an estimated $15 million a day to run. That's 7 times more to run per day than the $2.1 million the whole platform made in its entire lifetime. But there's a much longer list of dead products buried in OpenAI's graveyard than people realize. When ChatGPT 4.0 came out, it was genuinely good, but they retired it within months. They promised developers plenty of notice, but the actual notice period was 15 days. It had become known as the only version of ChatGPT capable of natural conversation, and people posted obituaries for it because they'd built a rapport with it and learned how to use it effectively. One study that ChatGPT 4's ability to produce working code dropped from 52% to 10% after a single update. Developers merely find out when their apps break, and users when their workflows stop working the same as before. And it's widely theorized that the models are secretly nerfed to conserve resources when OpenAI moves on to the next thing. And it also makes for great marketing to get people through the door. When a model grabs people's attention, they grab their subscription, and then who cares what happens next? And while OpenAI is killing its own products, the community that once supported them is quietly walking away. The entire vibe coding movement has become almost entirely Claude-centric. Anthropic's Claude Code is now widely considered the best AI coding tool available, with constant never-ending updates on X. Cursor, Lovable, and others, they all work best with Claude. Even employees at Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI itself were caught using it before Anthropic revoked their access. Switching to Claude has now even become a meme at the expense of OpenAI. Somewhere along the way, the most hyped company in the history of technology became pretty much a government contractor with a chatbot, all while desperately trying to ruin your job.
I think in the short term, it will destroy a lot of jobs. In the long term, like every other technological revolution, I assume we will figure out completely new things to do.
But none of this means they're losing their grip on society. It's actually the complete opposite. Because when you're burning this much cash with no clear path to profit, there's no option but to take bigger and bigger risks at the expense of everyone. Their next vision is a future where they sell you intelligence like a utility monopolized and controlled by the ultra wealthy.
We see a future where intelligence is a utility like electricity or water, and people buy it from us on a meter and use it for whatever they want to use it for. The demand that we see for that seems like it's going to continue to just go like this. And if we don't have enough, we either can't sell it, or the price gets really high and it, kind of goes to rich people.
As Altman explains, if they don't get the unlimited money they need, only rich people will be intelligent. And it's even worse than it looks, because he was talking to a guy who sits on OpenAI's board. So it was essentially a cozy chat between business partners about metering intelligence for profit. And they'll want your money to get there. It's widely reported that OpenAI is planning an IPO at a valuation of $1 trillion, which would immediately put them among the most valuable companies in the world. The $1 trillion valuation is roughly 40 times what the company actually earned, far higher than most companies at the height of the dot-com bubble. They're pulling in around $25 billion in revenue now, which sounds enormous until you realize they lost around $8 billion in 2025, and their own projections show it getting even worse. The plan is to hit profitability by 2029 or 2030. Most of OpenAI's biggest investors are also their biggest suppliers anyway. Nvidia sells the chips, Amazon runs the cloud, and the money goes in one door and out the other.
The pace and scale of artificial intelligence deals lately has been staggering. OpenAI and AMD announcing a 5-year AI data center deal.
OpenAI has signed a $300 billion deal with Oracle for cloud computing power.
NVIDIA saying it's going to invest $100 billion in OpenAI. It's sparking a global tech rally.
The IPO is one way to climb towards the next milestone. If AI really is going to take your job and change everything, then owning a piece of the company doing it feels like either a smart bet or just a hedge against an AI-driven future. Millions of people are going to FOMO buy on that basis, but the terms aren't the same for everyone. Before everyday people get anywhere near this stock, private equity firms are already in on a completely different deal. OpenAI was allegedly offering them a guaranteed minimum return of 17.5%, more than double the standard rate. They get downside protection, seniority over every other investor, and early access to unreleased models. The public that OpenAI was once committed to servicing gets none of that. An economist who studies bubbles says 3 or 4 warning signs are already flashing. The only one missing is a wave of IPOs. Goldman Sachs is now predicting the biggest IPO cycle the market will have ever seen because SpaceX and Anthropic could also list soon. So that last warning sign is definitely starting to flash. Now at this point you might be thinking none of this affects me, I'm not buying the IPO, I don't use ChatGPT, I couldn't care less about any of this. And that is completely reasonable, except you're already in far deeper than you probably realize. The S&P 500 is already rewriting its rules to fast-track OpenAI, SpaceX, and Anthropic within days of going public, skipping the usual long waiting periods that exist to let a stock prove itself. If that happens, every fund tracking those indexes would be forced to buy their stock, because they have to own whatever's in the index, as would anyone personally invested in the S&P 500. 401ks, pensions, and savings of all kinds would automatically absorb shares in companies that never made a penny off profit, at whatever inflated price they launch at. Even right now, just 10 companies already account for over 40% of the entire index, and almost all of them are heavily invested in AI.
Nearly half of the S&P market cap has medium to high exposure to AI, according to Citigroup's estimates. So what that means is that a lot of these companies in the index have put big bets on the emerging technology that's set to come out. The question is, will those bets pay off?
And so many people aren't aware how their retirement portfolio performance or taxable account portfolio performance is really dependent upon the success of these 5 companies. It's important for investors to understand, of the ETFs and mutual funds they have, what is my current exposure to AI? And if I buy stocks out of that, am I comfortable increasing my exposure in that significant of a way?
The Bank of England warned about this back in December, saying that if the AI boom deflates, it's ordinary people's pensions and savings that ultimately suffer. Some of the biggest teacher pension funds have already started reducing their exposure. And besides pensions and savings, over the last few years, a huge number of just random companies and government systems have completely restructured themselves around AI. This dependency is part of OpenAI's modus operandi because it creates long-term lock-in. It's a compounding situation where pension funds, governments, ordinary businesses, and an entire generation of startups are all now depending on the same small number of AI platforms. Platforms they don't own, can't see inside, and have absolutely no say over what happens next. There are people inside OpenAI who know none of this is right. The problem is they just keep on leaving the company. The co-founder and chief scientist Ilya, the man behind most of the actual breakthroughs, tried to eject Sam Altman from the board itself. 3 days later, Altman was back, the board was gone, and he had left. The new board is all of your typical Silicon Valley and finance lineup, including the former co-CEO of Salesforce, the former Treasury Secretary, the ex-CTO of Facebook, and a former Gates Foundation CEO. What people don't know is what that looked like behind the scenes. According to The New Yorker, Sutskever has spent weeks secretly compiling 70 pages of Slack messages, HR documents, and photos taken on personal phones, all to avoid detection on company devices. He sent the final memos to board members as disappearing messages, so no one else would ever see them. A board member who received them said that he was terrified. The memos began with a list headed, "Sam exhibits a consistent pattern of," and the very first item on that list was a single word, lying. Altman was kicked out and then returned with more power than he started with, and the head of the core safety team also resigned around the same time. He said publicly that OpenAI's safety culture and processes have taken a backseat to shiny products. The dominoes have kept falling ever since. The super alignment team itself was completely shut down, the mission alignment team was shut down, then the CTO left, the chief research officer left, the VP of research left, a co-founder left for Anthropic, the AGI readiness advisor left, and nearly half of all safety researchers walked out. They then changed the mission statement 6 times, and the most recent version deleted the word safely. At the center of what remains, Altman stands pretty much alone. He told Congress under oath in 2023 that he had no equity in OpenAI and earned only $76,000 a year.
You make a lot of money, do you?
No. I paid enough for health insurance. I have no equity in OpenAI.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. You need a lawyer.
I need a what?
You need a lawyer or an agent.
I'm doing this because I love it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yet, he'd say he'd never buy a Porsche, while also being photographed riding around in supercars worth millions of dollars, which hasn't gone uncriticized. Listen to Joe Rogan discuss it with Tom Segura here.
Do you know Sam Altman? He's the head of OpenAI.
Yeah.
He's always kind of said, I'm not doing this for money, I don't make any money. And they just busted him in a $4 million Koenigsegg.
They did?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
You see if you can find that car. The video of him in that car. Oh, I don't need money. But money? I'm not even interested in money. He's driving around a $4 million Koenigsegg.
God.
Look at it.
Oh,
See?
my God.
Go back to the beginning so you can see him get in it. Does it show him get in it? No. That's him in his fucking... Yeah. Elon was mocking him. Look at that. Got a $4 million car. There he is. Hi, busted.
Hey, bro.
Hey, bro. I think you like money. Look, you don't buy one of those unless you really want to get rich.
Yeah. And you also want everyone to know.
You want everyone to know how rich, and you're rich right now enough. I don't have a $4 million car. I wouldn't drive that. I'd be freaked out. I can't drive. I can't park it anywhere. What am I going to do? That's
insane.
crazy.
It's insane.
So that means he's got way more money than me. It's like, how much money you get? How much money you making? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing that you're driving a $4 million car? That's so crazy. And you're telling everybody you're not trying to make money? I'm not interested in money.
And the deeper you look, the deeper it gets. Multiple people interviewed for the New Yorker piece unprompted described Altman simply as sociopathic. A board member said, quote, he has 2 traits almost never seen in the same person. A strong desire to please people in any given interaction, and an almost sociopathic lack of concern for the consequences of deceiving someone. Aaron Swartz, one of the main guys behind Reddit, a man we've spoken about in the past as he's one of the most celebrated internet activists of his generation, even warned his friends this. Quote, you need to understand that Sam can never be trusted. He is a sociopath. He would do anything. When the board fired him in 2023, the New Yorker alleges they pressed him to acknowledge a pattern of deception. His response, according to people on the call, quote, I can't change my personality. A board member's interpretation, what it meant was, I have this trait where I lie to people and I'm not going to stop. Meanwhile, the New Yorker demonstrates how safety commitments were pure theater. OpenAI publicly pledged 20% of its computing power to the super alignment team, the team responsible for making sure AI doesn't go catastrophically wrong. The actual allocation was between 1 and 2%, and most of it was on the oldest hardware with the worst chips. When the team leader complained, he was told to stop pressing the point. One Microsoft executive told the New Yorker there's, quote, a small but very real chance he's eventually remembered as a Bernie Madoff or Sam Bankman-Fried level scammer. Altman only recently compared training AI models to raising a human for 20 years, and to human evolution as a whole as if it's a simple economic trade-off.
One of the things that is always unfair in this comparison is people talk about how much energy it takes to train an AI model relative to how much it costs a human to do one inference query. But it also takes a lot of energy to train a human. It takes like 20 years of life and all of the food you eat during that time before you get smart. And not only that, it took like the very widespread evolution of the 100 billion people that have ever lived and learned not to get eaten by predators and learned how to like figure out science and whatever to produce you, and then you took whatever you took. So the fair comparison is if you ask ChatGPT a question, how much energy does it take once its model is trained to answer that question versus a human? And probably AI has already caught up on an energy efficiency basis measured that way.
All this time he's been preparing for everyone's demise. He keeps guns, gold, potassium, iodide, gas masks from the Israeli Defense Force, and a patch of land in Big Sur he can fly to in the event of total destruction. His backup plan is Peter Thiel's compound in New Zealand. He later said none of it would really help if AGI goes wrong, but he described preparing as a fun hobby. And he's not alone in how he sees the future. The same applies to this entire class of AI leaders who collectively dominate the course of modern humanity. Carp, Palantir's CEO, said on CNBC that AI disrupts humanity's trained, largely democratic voters and makes their economic power less.
Humanity's trained, largely democratic voters and makes their economic power less.
He wrote a book arguing that tech companies fusing with state power is how you save Western civilization. Peter Thiel similarly said that competition is a relic of history, and that monopolies drive progress. These are the people deciding what the future looks like, and the thing that they all agree on is that the public doesn't get a say in whatever they decide. So OpenAI is losing money, but it isn't losing its power. It's spending its money to secure dependency and will ask you for money next when it does its IPO. Every move it makes looks reckless on the surface until you realize it's all part of the same strategy. Move into every system imaginable, become impossible to remove, and then charge for dependency. That charter still says benefits all of humanity, but the company that wrote it has deleted its own safety promises, emptied its own safety teams, and handed its technology with a free pass to the government, all while asking you to trust them. So at some point you have to stop trusting and start watching what they do and be very wary of what they plan to do next.
It is a bit scary to know that the most valuable private company in the world has your address and has shown up and has questions for you.
Tyler Johnston runs a small AI watchdog. Last summer, he was out when he received an unusual text from his roommate.
There's someone at the door with documents for you.
It was a man with subpoenas from OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT.
They were asking for every former employee that we had spoken to and what we said to them, every congressional office that we spoke to, every potential investor that we spoke to.
Tyler is just one of many advocates suddenly being targeted. As public demands to regulate the AI industry have escalated,
AI could put millions of Americans out of work.
Concerns around safety for kids.
Customers could see their bills increase by $20 each month.
AI clips of fake reports even reaching the Oval Office.
Its biggest players are going to political war.
They started texting my constituents.
Google was involved, Meta was involved, OpenAI was involved.
The AI industry broadly is ready to play hardball.
So I started investigating their tactics. I found an aggressive playbook trying to silence critics, kill legislation, and remake government in their interest. I wanted to know, what are AI companies so afraid of?
They can't have any flies in the ointment, which also means no regulation and no guardrails.
And what does it mean for the rest of us if they get what they want? When OpenAI subpoenaed Tyler, it tucked in an expansive demand that hinted at its real agenda.
They wanted every single document and text message and email that we had that in any way related to OpenAI's restructuring.
Founded as a nonprofit by Elon Musk and Sam Altman, OpenAI had for years been raising billions of dollars from investors through an internal for-profit arm. Then the nonprofit board attempted to fire Sam Altman, and investors panicked that they could lose all their money.
In the wake of that, Sam Altman made some promises to his investors that they would remove the power and control of the nonprofit from the for-profit entity.
But many advocates, including Tyler and Catherine, stood in the way.
We released an open letter. This was an open letter that was asking 7 relatively simple questions, not opposing the restructuring in any way, but asking for more transparency about what their plans were.
But failure to restructure could force OpenAI to give up $20 billion from its investors. The company turned its influence operations into high gear, under the leadership of a man named Chris. Lehane.
Whoever ends up winning on that ends up building the AI rails for the world. Like, that is a bit of a zero-sum game.
Lehane
Eventually, everyone will have to do token-based billing. There's no avoiding it unless they want to just continue annihilating billions of dollars. My source at Abilene says there's barely any hardware in there. OpenAI needs to take residency of this so Oracle can pay its project management fees. So even if OpenAI makes all this money, which includes them projecting to make $284 billion in 2030, they will have to raise at least $218 billion worth of funding, or debt, or something. I don't know. These numbers are insane. They're insane, and they are published by the Information and the Wall Street Journal like they're normal. They are not normal. And by the way, if OpenAI can't make that $852 billion, Oracle dies.
On the Tech Report with me again is the writer of Where's Your Ed At and the host of the Better Offline podcast, Ed Zitron. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So Anthropic has overtaken OpenAI and has hit $1 trillion valuation, at least on the secondary markets. How has Anthropic reached this price? And more importantly, how detached is this valuation from the reality of the company right now?
So extremely detached from reality. These are private secondary sales. They are low liquidity, low volume. Remember, these aren't like a stock you'd see in the public market as billions, 10 billion, 19 billion in some cases of daily volume. This is however much volume is on the secondary market. So probably thousands, hundreds of thousands at best. So yeah, one person probably bought it, maybe two. So this has happened because, I don't know, no one really knows why any of this is worth anything anymore. So everyone's just jumping around to what might be worth more next. I mean, OpenAI released Spud, their 5.5 model. And Sam Altman said, I paraphrase, I think he said, well, I really like it. It's the kind of thing you say to a child when it does something mediocre. So the real answer is that the excitement is gone from OpenAI, and there's still kind of some excitement for Anthropic, so people are moving stuff around their plates. But I remember a few weeks ago, there was $600 million worth of volume of OpenAI shares, allotment of OpenAI shares that nobody could shift. So I just assume that this is just a little bit of fluff jumping around a bit rather than an indication of anyone's true value. Because I don't know if I don't know if either of these companies goes public, but if they do, I don't think Anthropic is going at $1 trillion.
On that point, you have described Anthropic's valuation as a sham built on venture capitalist subsidies.
Yes.
Just to explain that a bit, I know obviously we've talked about this kind of thing before, but what would happen if Anthropic charged for the actual running cost of their AI, or another way of putting it, implemented their underlying business model without subsidization?
So we don't know what the API costs them. What we do know is they let people spend anywhere between like $2,000 and $4,000 a month on their $200 a month plan in tokens. Now, people say, oh, there's 50% gross margins. No one has any proof about this. I think in reality, the only way they could make their plans work is by having two of them, one that's $500 a month, one that's $1,000 a month. And even then, I'm not confident that those would be profitable. So, I mean, we'll get to GitHub Copilot in a second, but I know that when you look at the real costs, when you look at how businesses that need to make this actually work do things, such as Anthropic with their enterprise customers, by the way, they charge on a per million token basis. Just, I'm hinting at, by the way, that Anthropic moved their enterprise customers onto token-based billing. I don't even think there is a way of doing profitable monthly subscriptions to this stuff without just straight up charging for the tokens. And even then, I don't even know if serving the tokens is profitable. We've never had any proof of that. We've had Dario Amodei referenced twice in the space of 2 years, stylized facts, his words, that it could have gross margins over 50%. Reporting says gross margins, non-GAAP, so not generally accepted accounting principles, 45%. I think their margins are in the toilet, and I don't think there's any profitable product that Anthropic actually has.
Like you say, we'll carry on with Anthropic in a second, but let's get onto the Microsoft GitHub stuff. They're looking to reduce their service with their Copilot service on GitHub pretty much across the board and move it over to token-based billing. I mean, what is the significance of that? That's the second company that I can think of off the top of my head, with Anthropic being the second that is moving to token-based billing.
So GitHub Copilot is Microsoft's premier AI coding tool. It was for a time a very popular product and still kind of is. That's because it allowed you to burn way more than your subscription. They obfuscated the actual cost of things with requests. Fun fact, GitHub Copilot is also one of the top 2 largest clients of Anthropic for compute costs. That's because GitHub Copilot customers were able to burn as many tokens as they'd like within their requests. On Monday, I believe, Microsoft is announcing that they're moving all GitHub Copilot subscribers to token-based billing in June. The significance of this is that Microsoft is the single best capitalized, single most profitable, and single best positioned infrastructure-wise AI player. They are very profitable. They're the only one of the Magnificent Seven that's doing any significant CapEx investment just out of cash flow. They haven't had to raise as much debt as Amazon or Google. So if Microsoft is doing this, this means that Microsoft is feeling the pinch and that they're realizing that they need to start making costs, well, lowering costs. Now, the question is whether anyone pays for GitHub Copilot after this, because it's going from, oh, you pay $19 or $39 a month and you get a certain amount of requests and a decent amount of them, even though they pulled the rate limits, or tightened them, I mean. Now it's going to be, oh, you pay $19 a month, you get $19 worth of AI tokens. Not really sure. I guess you trade $19 for $19 and you can use GitHub Copilot. It's a sign that things are getting tight. And remember, Microsoft can afford to actually do the subsidies longer than anyone. They could afford to do it in perpetuity. If they're choosing not to, it means that CFO Amy Hood has got Satya Nadella in a room and she's locked the door and she's told him she needs to see numbers go down or else.
Like you say, Microsoft is the one that can afford to be doing this. So if we assume that soon this would imply others would be following suit, can the AI bubble survive token-based billing?
No. I mean, that's the thing. The problem with this whole bubble, one of many, I should say, is that they never should have done monthly subscriptions. It was a mistake from the beginning, but they tried to follow the tried and true Silicon Valley thing of, we'll make it cheap at the beginning, then we'll jack up the price. The problem is I don't think that there is an economical price for this. So every user right now, for the most part, has been trained to have a subsidized product. They're not trained to pay their token costs. They're not paid, they're not trained, they're not used to doing per million input and output tokens. That to them is considered very strange. And if you look on the subreddits for any of these products, whenever they do a rate limit shift, whenever they tighten them, whenever they lower requests, they scream like they're being electrocuted. So I don't think these people are going to react very well. But we're going to see within like 3 months exactly how popular these products are on their actual value. When you stop subsidizing the underlying compute, suddenly we'll find out whether they actually matter. Now, to be clear, GitHub Copilot is the only one right now that has actually moved to full token-based billing. Anthropic only did it for their enterprise customers. But the fact that Microsoft is doing it with their only really popular AI product, I mean, we're going to see how their users react. But after I scooped Microsoft on that story, the GitHub Copilot subreddit won't, they keep deleting the story. It's funny because it's kind of like watching the dinosaurs look up in the sky and be like, is the sun getting closer? I assume dinosaurs are smart enough to know what the sun was in this case. But nevertheless, it is going to be a real test of the validity of the AI bubble. I look forward to it. I actually think it's a good thing because this whole time, everyone's yap. AI is so powerful. AI is so important. It's so much productivity. No proof of that. But all of these stories that have been written about the power of Claude Code and all that have been based on subsidized accounts. And Anthropic, indeed, this week has started, I've never seen this in my career, A/B testing pricing for Claude. They briefly removed Claude Code from the $20 a month plan. They've randomly been showing people prices that are anywhere from 30 to 100% higher. They're not really explaining what's going on. It's very weird, and it suggests that everyone is getting very nervous. Now, to be clear, as Anthropic did all of these price checks, OpenAI is just going out there saying, we've reset rate limits again. Reset rate limits, baby. Come burn our pile of cash. Come waste Sam Altman's money. You can do it, folks. So it's a very bizarre situation because eventually everyone will have to do token-based billing. There's no avoiding it unless they want to just continue annihilating billions of dollars.
One thing that I did see that was, again, this is NVIDIA's marketing. They said that their new Vera Rubin GPUs will be reducing the energy usage per token by up to 35 times, not percent, 35 times cheaper. I mean, that sounds too good to be true, and maybe one day in the far future we'll get there. But that is not, that's marketing, right?
Yes, and the thing is, they said that it was 10x cheaper between Blackwell and H100s too. And also, these benchmarks are always for very specific benchmark tests that NVIDIA runs using open source models. It would be, you know what? If they went out there, I would eat my words, if they went out there with a defined study that actual technical people looked at and agreed with, that said, we have made GPT 5.5 10 times cheaper to run, or 35 times cheaper to run, I'd eat my words, but they're never going to do that because no one wants to talk about the actual cost of running these models because I think they're really, really high. We're still in a situation where we do not know how much it costs to run OpenAI or Anthropic's models. We know their overall cost, but we don't know the actual line costs. And we won't unless one of them files that S1. That I gotta see that S1. But I think NVIDIA is always going to say that. What's funny is, I swear to God, when Vera Rubin was announced, they said 10x. But I read 35x too recently. So it's just like, which one is it, Jensen? Jensen? Which one are you talking about, mate? Like, is it 10, 35? Or is it just a number you come up with every time you're asked?
So if we imagine AI is now paid for by the token, user bases across the board have dropped, which were quickly followed by valuations. What happens next? I mean, are there any companies that are left alive still doing this kind of stuff? Is there that techno-feudalism, the rich people have AI and the rest of us are living in the dirt kind of thing?
I don't think that that's how that goes, because here's the whole thing. Even the most belligerent AI booster will have trouble telling you how much it costs to do anything, because the inherent unreliability of large language models means that you can't say with any guarantee how much or how long anything will take. One day a model might one-shot something. One day it might spin its wheels and come back and go, I deleted everything. And I'm not even being facetious. This happened to someone on Twitter talking about Opus 4.7 yesterday. This is the large language model problem. And on top of that, most people who have used large language models have been trained to use it with a subscription, with a rate limit. They don't know how to run a token-based economy. Every report I read of someone actually paying their rates, they're talking 300 to 500 a day. Anthropic themselves, I think, says $6 a day for the average user of Claude Code, with 90% being below $12 a day. That's a lot of money. You're talking, like, even on a low level, you're talking hundreds of dollars a month. And I think it's more like thousands, especially for an engineer. So what will happen is you will start seeing companies. I mean, you had the Uber CTO say they blew through their token budget, their AI token budget, in a few months, their entire year's budget within a few months. At some point, companies are going to go, wait, is this losing us more money than we're gaining? Is this inefficient? Ooh, because they haven't had to before. When you eat the buffet every day, you don't have any idea how much a meal costs. And so you're going to see people make hard budgetary decisions. And suddenly, the gifted child of large language models is just not going to be that impressive anymore. It's just going to be like, why am I paying $100 a day? What am I doing with that? There was a Goldman Sachs report that said that there were some businesses spending 10% of their headcount on AI tokens, and that could increase in the next few quarters to 100% of headcount. And isn't the whole point we're, not that I like this idea, isn't the whole point we're replacing people and removing the cost of a person? We've added more people, except instead of having a person that can learn and grow and kind of interconnect into the organization and strategize with people, we have just money to Dario Amodei and Sam Altman. I'm not sure most people are going to like this so much, especially because no one can really explain the productivity benefits. Every study feels like it's written by the Riddler. So I think we're just going to have a moment of truth. I think we're going to see an unvarnished evaluation of this. The real question is, who is the last man standing? Because GitHub Copilot is the first one that will be moving to token-based billing. Who's next? Because the question is, who moves regular subscribers to token-based billing? Is it OpenAI? Is it Anthropic? It won't be Grok. I think Elon Musk's going to be the last man standing. Him and Michael Truell of Cursor, hand in hand, as Elon does not pay them. I think it's probably OpenAI will be the last to drop. If Anthropic does token-based billing first for everyone, I honestly give it to them, but people are going to be so angry.
This kind of brings us back to that valuation, which admittedly, like you say, is not massively representative, but it does beg the question why people are buying it at that valuation when the company is struggling with capacity issues that we've mentioned, especially that it could never pay them off. And is also, there are growing complaints over deteriorating product, which is gathering more and more evidence from AMD bigwig saying, actually, no, there are numbers to this. It's not just a bug or people not using it correctly.
So the thing is with the getting dumber as well, Anthropic spent a month saying, we've not changed the models at all. Boris and the Munch Bunch over at Anthropic, they said yesterday, oh, actually, yeah, we tweaked something. It did make it dumber. Just lying. They just gaslit their customers for a month. Their compute capacity, and I mentioned this before last week, I believe, it's not a capacity issue. They would be fine with capacity if they just stopped accepting customers, but they'll take any money they can. And I think what it is that there's nothing else to really invest in. There's not any other big startups that are going to have any kind of multiples. There's nothing else that's really exciting, unless you want to pretend that robotics is going to happen again. I thought we tried that with the IBO about 25 years ago, but we're back, baby. We're going to pretend that robots work. You can't really invest in the public markets. What other venture capital swindles are there? Crypto? No, I can't do that again. I had someone mention the metaverse again the other day. That's not a good sign. Yeah, we didn't need a second Grinch, but it's interesting because I think people are just moving around, just being like, what are we all doing? Anthropic, I guess we're excited about that now. It all feels very very half-hearted at this point. You can't really find anyone who is telling you with any certainty why this is happening. You've got the new plate spinning thing they're doing is they're claiming there's a CPU shortage now. They're claiming that agents use more CPUs. And it's just like, the moment I saw that, I'm like, oh, Christ. You're just going to, in 15 weeks, you're going to be saying we have a storage crisis. We need more NAND storage. And, oh, we need bigger cases. We need more water cooling. They're going to find every possible part of the hardware stack to get excited about before one of them finally starts the car in the garage. And it's like, it's frustrating because the longer this goes on, the worse it gets. The more money that gets into this, the more that is wasted. It really comes down to, going back to the token-based billing, once one of the major labs goes full token-based, that's how you know it's over. That's how you know that they are saying, crap, we can't do this, how we're doing this. And you know what? Maybe they'll pull it off. Maybe everyone, instead of paying $200 a month, will pay $1,500 or more. I'm sure that people will do that for exactly the same, if not slightly worse, because that's what's coming. Because the crazy thing is I hear that the API, Anthropic's API, is less stable than using it on the subscription. So you have the indignity of paying more and you get worse service. This is the thing. Anthropic, ostensibly worth $380 trillion, a bazillion dollars, however much, they run their company terribly. Their service is inconsistent. They have less than 4 nines of uptime. They have a CEO that talks like a duck that was turned into an old man, that tells us that they're going to fire 50% of all white-collar workers within a year or 2 years or 6 months or 18 months or 50 years. We don't know. They gaslight their customers. They have some of the most annoying people boosting them. It sucks. It's not fun. This isn't fun for anyone. It's the worst possible bubble we could ask for. It loses the most money. The people are boring and annoying and think they're philosophers, but they're just regular guys who have read like Atlas Shrugged and the dictionary. They're just boring, and the products are dull, and the excitement is fake, and the valuations are fake, and the economy doesn't make sense. It's just so upsetting and annoying and wasteful.
We've mentioned this before a bit, but Mythos, the too dangerous for public consumption thing, that was now that we're a little bit further on, we've had some time to sort of digest all of this stuff. That was more about them not having the capacity to release a model like that to the public, right?
Yeah, and also the reports have come out of organizations using it. Firefox came out and said, yeah, it's quick at finding bugs, but didn't find any like crazy stuff. It's not better than a human. They were very like lukewarm on it. A security researcher did a big report on it as well that basically said that they kind of jimmied the numbers a bit to seem a bit more impressive. The whole thing was a farce. The whole thing was just hype. And I'm actually really grateful to Anthropic for this, because without Mythos, we would not have known who the most credulous people in the world were. All Anthropic had to do was do a press release, because let's be honest, half the people that went on TV talking about this didn't even look at the system card. They found the people, they went, our model is going to wake up and kill you. Our model is in your crawl space. It's in your walls. It's poisoned your dog. And these people going, I saw someone on the TV the other day in the UK going on, one of the supposed godfathers of AI going, Mythos could hack every system. It's so dangerous. You've not used it. Also, it can't hack. That's not what it does. It's a bug finder. It can't hack. Even though they claim it can do these exploits, it didn't actually action any of them. That's the thing, though. Anthropic is just, it is a credulousness magnet. It's just people that are ready to believe anything. If it's convenient to their narrative, or convenient to their theoretical pocketbook, or just an excuse to get on TV and seem scared, then yeah, Anthropic is great for that. If you want to find a dishonest company that runs a bad business, that sells things through lying, Anthropic, this is the business for you. They lose billions of dollars and hope to lose billions of dollars in the future. Would you like to invest now or in the future? I'm just so tired of them.
Well, let's move on to data centers, because you reveal in your premium newsletter that 15 months into Stargate now, much less of it is under construction than their public statements would have you believe, and barely any of it is online. Just how far have they fallen off schedule, and what does it mean for Oracle, who's building this on razor-thin margins and is currently the only one footing the bill for it?
Okay, so Stargate Abilene, a 1.2 gigawatt capacity, so about 824 megawatt data center of 8 buildings, was meant to be done, was meant to be energized by the end of 2025. The first quarter of 2026, middle of 2026, October 2026. Not sure. There are now 2 buildings operational of 8. 2. In December of last year, they had the chips delivered for them. Not installed, delivered. They have finished a 3rd building. Finished does not mean filled with anything. In fact, my source at Abilene says there's barely any hardware in there. OpenAI needs to take residency of this so Oracle can pay its project management fees. Oracle will be spending, when this thing is fully built, about $2.14 billion a year, maybe more, and it will make them theoretically $10 billion a year in revenue. But nevertheless, they need to complete the bloody thing first. Based on my discussions with people on the ground, Stargate Abilene will not be online anytime before Q1 2027. The overall Stargate data center project is about 7.1 gigawatts of data center capacity. Nothing to do with Donald Trump. That whole thing was a sham. No government money. Very unfair. Nevertheless, those data centers in totality will cost about $340 billion. They will theoretically make $75 billion a year in annual revenue. Few problems with that. These data centers are meant to be done end of 2028. If these things are done before 2029 to 2031 at this point, I will eat my hat after slow smoking it on the pit. There is no way these things get done. And by the way, if OpenAI cannot pay Oracle, Oracle dies. This is not hyperbole. This is the financial situation Oracle has got itself into. There is no other tenant that can afford that. $75 billion a year is so much money. And based on projections from the information leaked from OpenAI themselves, OpenAI needs to make in revenue and raise in funding and debt $852 billion over the next 4 years. I'm not kidding. They also say they'll be making $673 billion of revenue. Now, Isaac, no, you don't have a calculator, but 673 is smaller than 852 billion. So even if OpenAI makes all this money, which includes them projecting to make $284 billion in 2030, they will have to raise at least $218 billion worth of funding or debt or something. I don't know. And the only way this works, by the way, is their projection says they become cash flow positive to the tune of $39 billion in 2030. These numbers are insane. They're insane, and they are published by the information in the Wall Street Journal like they're normal. They are not normal. And by the way, if OpenAI can't make that $852 billion, Oracle dies. Oracle cannot pay its bills. Oracle had negative cash flow of nearly $25 billion last quarter. It is having to raise debt in this weird Byzantine way where Oracle doesn't actually take on the debt. It puts it off balance sheet on a project financing loan that is then put into a special purpose vehicle, which they are still on the hook for. So Oracle doesn't own anything. An SPV does, but Oracle has all of the risk. And literally, they cannot afford to pay for it unless OpenAI can pay them $75 billion a year. And got some more bad news for Larry Ellison fans. I know there are many of them in the audience. Larry Ellison has pledged 346 million shares of his own shares in Oracle, about 60-point-something billion dollars worth, on personal loans based on his Oracle shares. If Oracle's deal falls apart with OpenAI, Oracle's share price will fall, and when that happens, Mr. Ellison will face margin calls from hell itself, and there is nothing to fix it. People are going to hear this, and they're going to go, oh, Donald Trump's going to bail him out. Donald Trump, is it a bad man's going to... No, because even if there was a bailout of Oracle, even if there was to somehow deal with these horrible project financing, the stock of Oracle is going into the toilet and being flushed aggressively because Oracle's other businesses, hardware licensing, software licensing, and the like, are plateauing. Their cloud businesses are the only things that's growing. And by the way, they have negative to low margins. OpenAI is paying them theoretically $10 billion a year for Abilene on completion, but that's only if they got a good price. It could be lower. And just to be clear, Oracle needs $75 billion, and OpenAI needs to be able to pay $75 billion a year, and also towards the $138 billion deal it did with Amazon Web Services, towards the $250 billion it owes Microsoft Azure, the $20 billion it owes Cerebrus, the $22.4 billion it owes CoreWeave. There's some money they owe Google as well. They're meant to be installing 10 gigawatts of Broadcom GPUs by the end of 2030. None of this makes sense. None of this makes sense at all. Where is Michael Burry? Where are the people that... I love doing this job. It's great. But there's a certain level of like, hey, guys, anyone else want to do the maths? Because this Oracle's gonna die unless they walk away from Stargate or massively renegotiate these contracts, and I just don't see that happening. And I also don't see OpenAI actually being able to pay, and there's no one that can afford these deals, unless you choose Anthropic, who has exactly the same problem as OpenAI.
When you were going through the ever-shifting deadline for Stargate, the one thing that, obviously, this is the question we're going to talk about it now, the GPUs that are supposed to be being put in there, with the construction rate, and then you add in the installation time of those cards, are they even going to be able to be finishing these data centers before they have to start, well, just taking the GPUs back out again?
Well, that's the funny thing, Isaac. They can't take them out. So, Stargate Abilene, by the time it's complete, will be full of GB200 NVL72 racks. 72 racks of 72 GB200 GPUs. Those things will be 2 years old by the time that Abilene is fully operational. By the time the other data centers are finished, and they're most likely going to be Vera Rubin GPUs, those too will be about 2, maybe 3 years old. After, I think there's 2 generations of Vera Rubin. I know, very confusing. First Vera Rubin generation fits in the same racks as Blackwell, Oberon racks. Mr. Jensen Huang has already said that they are moving on to Kyber racks. Big, massive, completely different 600 kilowatt, about 5 times the power on them. Yeah, completely different cooling required. Just, you can't plug and play that. You'll have to demolish the inside of the thing, just like people had to do between the previous generation and Blackwell. So yeah, everything that you're hearing about data centers is already obsolete. And it just means that, and the worst thing is that with Blackwell especially, all of the data centers you've heard announced recently are all Blackwell. So on top of the fact that you've got this nearing obsolescence within the next 3 years, I'd say, GPU series, everyone's got them too. It's not like before where there were a lot of H100s and 200s. There are so many more Blackwells, millions of these bloody things, and everyone has them. And so as data centers come online, which is taking forever anyway, it's going to be full of these decrepit chips. And you already have a situation with Supermicro, a embarrassed, a dishonored ODM, original device manufacturer. They built the servers, put the GPUs in them. They have over $1 billion worth of Blackwell B200 GPUs that they cannot sell. They're languishing in inventory. We're already seeing the signs. And that's kind of why none of this makes sense. Because you buy the GPU in 2025, you install it by what, 2027? 2 years later, you have the 2 years earlier's gear. Everything is misaligned. Everything is misaligned, and there's no aligning it. Unless we find a way to build data centers and power and also get transformers are in low supply, and also electrical grade steel, and also the talent to build it. Also, there's not enough water. Also, we don't have the power. We're running out of cable. Also, there's a war in Iran. If we can solve all of that and invent a new way to do data centers, we might be slightly on track. It's not happening. It's not happening at all.
You hinted at a little bit of news, which I think has generally gone kind of under the radar, which Oracle cancelled about $1.1 to $1.4 billion worth of chips from Supermicro. I mean, you kind of hinted at it, but what is that a sign of?
Well, Supermicro's co-founder, Wally Liar, got arrested for selling GPUs to the Chinese. So it could be related to the fact they're dodgy. It could also be the fact that Oracle can't afford them. They ended up buying the servers from a company called Willian, which is that's the name. It's out in Taiwan, one of these original design manufacturers like Honhai, Foxconn, and all them. That's where all the hyperscalers buy their GPUs. What happens is a company buys the GPUs out in Taiwan from NVIDIA, puts them in a server, designs the server, sells them to a Microsoft, an Oracle, or what have you. Nevertheless, it could be they're dodgy. It could be the fact that Oracle didn't need the B200s anymore and they wanted the fancier, newer ones. It isn't really clear. But Supermicro is in a bad position. They had an accounting scandal 2 years ago. They've had people arrested before. This isn't even their second rodeo. They have a very bizarre situation going over there. And they've claimed that it's all sorted now. But if Oracle is canceling with them, it's either that they don't trust the company in general, they don't trust them to actually deliver them, or the gear wasn't what they needed. And I mean, Supermicro might be in real danger. $1 billion of inventory for a company with I think 10 or something $billion annual revenue. Forgive me for not remembering off the top of my head. That's not insignificant. And also, it will be the first write-down of present NVIDIA inventory in history as far as the AI GPUs go.
What happens once we reach that point where these GPUs are being taken back out of the racks, maybe before they've even been put in? Is there a mechanism for companies to sell them back to NVIDIA for a discount on the next round, or are we going to be seeing a massive flood of them hitting the second-grade market?
I don't think you're going to see them replaced. I think that these Blackwell data centers are going to turn on, and they're going to do what they can to shift the compute. I heard a truly insane story just before coming on here from The Information that they're barely getting $3.70 an hour per Blackwell GPU, renting them out. And that's on the higher end. I don't think that even covers the cost of building the infrastructure to house them and the debt associated. $3.70. I had a quote from a source over at Oracle that said Blackwell B300 GPUs cost about $6 an hour a GPU. So yeah, I don't think 370 is going to cut it. And there's a capacity crunch because data centers take forever to build. But I think what's going to happen is they're just going to kind of sit in it because NVIDIA's not going to buy them back. Why would they? Well, what possible reason would NVIDIA buy them? So if we see these GPUs dumped on the market at scale, though, that's when things start getting hairy. But I think what's more likely is we see one of my pale horses, which is a fully built data center goes under. I think one goes under, and at that point, that's when we start seeing everyone get a little bit worried, which they should have been before they built the things.
If the GPUs do end up getting dumped, where does that leave the companies that have tens of billions of dollars in GPU-backed debt, and then the people that then gave them that loan on the basis that these GPUs might be worth something, when if it ever came to that?
It heavily depends on the nature of the relationship. If these are asset-backed securities that have some sort of margin call related to the value of the GPUs, that could lead to a margin call because GPUs won't be worth as much. If it leads to mass impairment of GPUs, you will see $5 to $10 billion chopped off, a quarter off of multiple hyperscalers. It really depends how significant the sell-off is. It might take another 6 months for this to begin. It might be a case where, I don't know, just a random data center, maybe Ellendale, North Dakota, falls apart because they're losing $1 million a day, just an example. It might be that they can't afford their actual loans. I think you're going to see a wave of refinancing within data centers. You're going to see these companies trying to get a better deal while the lights are still on. I think at some point someone's going to fall behind. Maybe it's CoreWeave. It might be Nebius. Nebius is building a data center out in Vineland, New Jersey. Other than the fact they're not and construction got halted, they still claim that they're on schedule. A lot of that going around. A lot of companies not on schedule saying, oh, yeah, we're fine. Everything's good. We're not doing anything, but that just means we're more ready to do stuff when we can. And it's interesting because to this day, we still don't have a very good understanding of how much money these things make. All of it's still obfuscated. This thing we have now built, invested at least $1 trillion in, and we do not know how much it truly costs. That's a sign that the costs aren't good, because everything else, any other business we know where the margins are good, we know everything about it because they're boasting about it. So I think, I don't know, CoreWeave's next earnings should be real interesting. I think that it's looking like barely any data centers are getting built before 2028. I don't think Stargate makes it. But I think that instead of these GPUs being ripped and replaced, because the moment you put them in service, the clock starts on depreciation. And if you mark them down, you have to mark them down immediately. So they're going to try and use them. They're going to do everything they can to sell that compute, even if it means taking a loss. And at some point, someone's going to take too big a loss, and they're going to run out of money.
So just finally, it's a good time to ask this question, I think. Does Oracle have any destiny ahead of it after all of this, other than bankruptcy, other than perhaps maybe recouping some costs from OpenAI, or is that just going to be bringing them down, bringing them crashing and burning down with it?
Oracle could theoretically get out of Stargate data centers. All of the data centers are funded under SPVs, separate entities. If they really wanted to play legal, I don't know, like the movie Julies, want to go straight at their debtors, they could just refuse to pay. They could attempt to swindle them. Oracle loves suing. They have a great series of lawyers. They're famous. I've heard journalists refer to them as a law firm with software attached. But the problem they have is that their only growth right now really is from AI GPUs. Without that, most of their businesses are barely above a straight line. So they don't really, Oracle doesn't really have another choice. There are ways of recapitalizing that company. I think if it runs out of money, it will be passed out. It'll rip bits of it off and send to Microsoft and whoever. I just don't know how it survives this. OpenAI needs $852 billion in the next 4 years. That is not that is an alarming figure to me, but it is not hyperbole. It's what the information and the Wall Street Journal have reported. These are the numbers. If they cannot do that and Oracle builds these data centers, Oracle is screwed. The other way out is that Oracle just doesn't build them. That Oracle just, theoretically, the project could shut down. They could shut down Michigan. They could shut down all of these others. But they just got this debt. And Oracle has really strung themselves out to get this debt. So at this point, I don't know what saves Oracle from the void. I don't think Ellison has any other plans. And while I think the Paramount deal goes through, I think that in the end, they're going to end up selling Paramount. They're going to end up selling CBS because they're not going to have the money to pay for it. I think they're going to sell their share of TikTok, probably back to ByteDance at this point. Could take a year or two. Could be really quick. It really depends on what breaks and how it breaks. And a lot of that comes down to OpenAI paying its bills and these contractors actually finishing these data centers.
Well, Ed Zitron, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed today's episode of The Tech Report, please consider liking and subscribing. Also, you can get episodes of The Tech Report wherever you get your podcasts.
I think that if OpenAI stumbles trying to find funding, everything will start to unravel. They think they're building something to capture our futures when they're actually building the end of theirs. Oh, here's the craziest round trip one. How can I forget this? NVIDIA has committed in the next 6 years, I think, to $27 billion worth of compute. They're literally paying their customers to buy their things. It's all a circle at this point.
On the Tech Report with me today is writer of Where's Your Ed At and the host of the Better Offline podcast, Ed Zitron. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
As soon as I saw the news that OpenAI was downgrading their spending on the AI build out from 1.4 trillion to 600 billion, I knew I wanted to talk to you about it.
Right.
What do you make of the largest kind of AI company out there in terms of user base, more than halving their spending on the AI build out? And why do you think it happened?
I think it's because it was all funny money to begin with. That $1.4 trillion number was so weird because it was like theoretically going to be the 10 gigawatts that they had with Oracle and Stargate, even though the Stargate data center project is it doesn't really exist. The venture I don't think they even formed it. It certainly hasn't spent any money. And on top of that, the CNBC reported this morning that apparently OpenAI deliberately lowered it because people were getting concerned that they could not afford to spend it. And what's funny is they were like, yeah, we took it down from $1.4 trillion to $600 billion, as if that's like a more rational number. As if I was like, oh, 600 billion, that's nothing. Oh, I was worried for a second. No, it's just more moving money around in a way that they still can't afford to pay. Like they're still in the same situation as they were before. And also I think they're going to spend, well, they're not going to make it to spend $600 billion, but nevertheless, like, it's just not going to happen. It's more bollocks.
So they're cutting back because they can't afford it rather than that maybe they overestimated the capacity that they might need.
It's more that, cutting back would suggest that they're going to be able to spend $600 billion. They lose billions of dollars a year. They are going to lose even more $1 billion a year. They've, as we'll get to, only just raised $110 billion, but they didn't even raise that. Taking it down from 1.4 trillion to 600 billion, it may as well be 60 gazillion to 20 bazillion. Like, it's just funny numbers. These are not realistic numbers. The entire annual revenue of Amazon Web Services, I think, is about $110 billion. Entire revenue of Azure was, I think, $75 billion. So yeah, just 3 times both of those. That's how much OpenAI is going to spend between now and 2030. A year it will definitely make it to and not die before.
I mean, OpenAI is a company that kind of lives off being sort of the first household name in AI, first on the market, and kind of being the king of the proverbial hill.
Yeah.
What does it mean then if they're not able to afford the build out that they kind of were expecting that they would need. Does
What?
it mean that they are going to lose their place as number one if they don't have the compute that they predicted they would need? And then what does that mean for them as a company that relies on that?
Again, we're living in the fantasy land. Like they took down a bazillion to a gajillion. They took a. We may as well be talking about the Smurf economy at this point, or what Gargamel is doing to the Smurfs this week. Because I must be clear, OpenAI, they made, I actually question these numbers, $13.1 billion last year in revenue, and they lost $8 billion on that. I actually think they lost more based on my own reporting. But nevertheless, $13.1 billion in revenue, still losing $8 billion. How exactly does that go to a company spending even $100 billion in a year? How do they pay their $300 billion 5-year-long deal with Oracle? The answer is they don't. We are yet to get to the point when OpenAI has to start paying these bills, and I just don't see it happening at the scale it needs to. So it's them pulling back is just, they're still the largest compute user in the world. They're still the largest AI company in the world. They are still that. Whatever that means now, there's not a ton of differentiation between their products and everyone else's. They still lose billions. I'm not really sure that them taking it down from one number that's stupid to another number that's stupid doesn't really change my esteem of the company.
One of my questions was going to be, what does an $800 billion sort of drawdown or cutback really mean in practical terms? Like how much compute, how much GPUs? But I guess what you're kind of saying is that it is kind of not the point.
Isn't really the point. I mean, so wait, $14.50 per megawatt. See, it's about 145 billion for 10 gigawatts. I mean, it's just, it means they're using less gigawatts. But again, where are these gigawatts getting built? When will they be built? Stargate Abilene, we're only 2 buildings in. They're meant to be building 10. I'm hearing the last 2 buildings are either going to be taken by Meta, Google, or Amazon, or NVIDIA is just going to buy all the GPUs for them. Rumors abound there. Rumors on a construction site are never a good sign. Generally, you should all know why you're building and what you're building and who's paying for it. I just think it's deck chairs in the Titanic at this point. It's just, yeah, they raised a bunch of money, theoretically, with big asterisks on it. Yeah, they're going to spend less than 1.4 trillion of other people's money because OpenAI does not have the cash flow to pay for that. So it's like, the question is, will venture capital and big tech be able to pay for that? Will they be willing to? On what terms will they be willing to? And the truth is, nothing's really changed in the sense that all of this is still impossible.
Is this something that is limited to OpenAI? Sort of, is this the sign of their first financial troubles sort of hitting on their spending? Or is this something that is, do you think we'll be seeing more of this from other people that are building data centers?
We're kind of already seeing it with Anthropic. Anthropic is already having to, they are cutting off, I've heard rumors that they're going to stop letting enterprises use the subscription product. I've seen rate limiting happening. I've seen people questioning whether the model has got dumber. Anthropic already has had to raise $30 billion this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they raised more. They bought $21 billion of Google's chips from Broadcom. We will eventually see this from Anthropic unless they push through to IPO, in which case we'll see their S1 and we'll see exactly how badly that company's run. It's the same problem that Anthropic has. Anthropic is just, I don't know, having different arguments at the moment with the government. But Anthropic has the same capacity demands. They're the same voracious spenders. They made $4.5 billion of revenue last year and lost $5.2 billion. They're the same. They're the same company. They're the same company with different guys. Anthropic grew out of OpenAI. Amodei doing this moral stance against Hegseth is, I mean, it's a lose-lose situation there. I'm kind of getting off topic, but the point is, yes, these are problems that Anthropic will face too.
I mean, that was something that I had seen in the news as well, the Anthropic Pete Hegseth standoff. I mean, just briefly, I do want to get more onto sort of the OpenAI stuff, but where's that going?
Well, the question is, because now Sam Altman in his great diplomacy, he is now saying, oh, he's calling for cooler heads. He's like, I hope they work it out. But what it is that Dario Amodei is refusing to remove the restrictions on Anthropic. Now, I must be clear, one of these restrictions does not exist that would stop them using it for weapons of mass destruction and using it for controlling autonomous autonomous weapons. Now, it must be clear, Anthropic makes a large language model. They don't make tech that controls autonomous weapons. This is not a feature of Claude or any other LLM. So, very advantageous for them to be like, no, you couldn't possibly do that. I think that there is a chance that Dario Amodei actually cares. I think that there's just as much a chance, especially because this week they removed safety from like their Anthropic's creed. Great timing. I think that there's a chance they fold, there's a chance they don't. If they don't, then they'll be turned into the LLM equivalent of Huawei, which is no longer a major company in America for that reason. It really depends on how this goes down. I could see them finding a middle ground where like both sides feel like they won but nothing changed. I also wonder if they're going to do this to OpenAI. Because I bet Clammy Sam Altman, I could see him going either way. I could see him being like, no, we couldn't possibly. I could also see him being like, yeah, who gives a crap? Who cares? Ugh, I need more money. Even though the military is not really going to make them a ton of money. They're selling government services very cheap. So, I mean, it's such a weird situation. It's such a bizarre situation. And Anthropic is really they're in a Kobayashi Maru. It's unwinnable. If they say yes and they cede, all the people will go, well, you said you were the safety-focused one. They can't really claim that anymore. If they say no, they get, no, it's a supply chain risk. It's bloody difficult.
Back onto what I really wanted to chat about. You've once said that in one of our chats before that when AI companies start to scale back what they were pledging on spending, that would be one of the signs of the AI bubble starting to pop.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of, because we obviously have now seen OpenAI scale back their spending, what do you think is happening?
I think the crazy idea people are starting to do mathematics. They're starting to say, oh, wait, is this making it? Well, it's losing lots of money. Well, how much? Oh, it's losing so much more money than it makes. So much more. In fact, the amount of money it makes is quite small. Forget if I went over this last time, but Claude Code, most popular thing in the world, incredible. About $200 billion a monthly revenue. Cool, but if you're allegedly replacing all coding, which they're not, you'd think they make more money than that. I think just everyone's suddenly facing reality, slowly. CoreWeave's earnings yesterday really soured the party. CoreWeave, great company, they only sell AI compute. They are probably, I think, the best example of if they were doing well, it would mean AI works, and if they do badly, well, it doesn't. And the truth is, somehow, by making more money, their margins have collapsed. I think they're negative 6%, if not worse, and that's before you consider debt. Over $450 million of debt of interest payments in just one quarter, $2.5 billion of depreciation. Point is, selling AI compute is clearly not good. And the reason I bring up CoreWeave is because CoreWeave's customers are like the creme de la creme of the AI bubble. You've got Microsoft for OpenAI, Google for OpenAI. Microsoft, by the way, they've been using CoreWeave for a while for OpenAI, but don't worry, OpenAI is also a customer, and also NVIDIA. So they've got top-tier customers. They've got the people with the biggest wallets, and it's very clear that CoreWeave is having to take below profitable rates on their compute. If that's, I mean, that's kind of the ball game. It's just like if CoreWeave, 5.15 billion, I think, of revenue is what they had for 2025, came out their annual reports yesterday. If their margins are going backwards, if their margins are getting worse, the more money they make, that suggests that everyone renting out AI data centers is facing the same problem. Do you think that CoreWeave, the one with the most press, the most money, the first access to all the chips, backing of NVIDIA, the backstop of NVIDIA, if their margins are decaying, do you think anyone else's are? I think so. I think they're probably all bad. And seeing OpenAI pull things back is probably because they had to tell investors, yeah, don't worry, we're not pledging $1.4 trillion. We're just pledging $600 billion. And also, OpenAI is claiming, I think in 2029, they'll make $280 billion. It's just, I feel like any investor who gets conned by OpenAI now deserves it. But I mean, it's just, I keep getting back to this point that we're already kind of hurtling towards the end. It's just a question of when it happens. OpenAI's valuation now is $730 billion. Now, that means for them to IPO and have it be a success for their investors at that price, they need to be like a $1.52 trillion market cap. So they'll be more than Meta and TSMC. It's just, none of this makes sense. And you see these cutbacks, You see them, and that's someone going, well, we need to make this feel more sensible. There is no making this feel more sensible. We live in a broken paradigm where everyone believed in something, pumped up by things like the Citrini memo, which was just full of lies about what AI can do. This whole AI sell-off story, which is just nonsense. You can't just have a full SaaS product burst from Claude Code. Everyone's living in this false reality. And they're living in it because all of the people who are responsible for telling you the truth are just kind of messing up. You see CNBC claiming that you can vibe code SAP and Oracle's database. It's just nonsense. But because everyone's living in the nonsensical, you're seeing these little cuts happen just to try and shape it into something that fits into even a broken reality. And I think people are realizing that it doesn't actually make any sense anymore. So it's just a question of when the snap happens, when people just go, oh God, did we make a mistake?
You mentioned OpenAI's, I think we could say, optimistic prediction of its 2030 revenue at 280 billion. I mean, we're talking about sort of not viable business plans right now. 280 billion by 2030, when they're supposed to have, by that point, spent over 600 billion.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound... I mean, I know obviously they would have earned annually money up to the point to reach 2030 and get to that revenue. But that still doesn't make sense if they're only... What?
It means that they're going to need, what, half a $500 billion of funding? Thereabouts? I mean, unless they become the single most successful revenue generating company in the world, they're still going to need hundreds of billions of dollars more. I need to be specific about what this 110 billion they raised from Amazon, Nvidia, and SoftBank. So the information reported, 50 billion from Amazon is actually 15 billion. 35 billion of that is dependent on them reaching AGI or going public. Then SoftBank and Nvidia, 30 billion each. However, those are paid per the information in installments, 3 installments throughout the year. They're on Klarna. You got SoftBank and Nvidia Klarnaing the OpenAI investment. The reason I bring this up is, all right, let's say that all this money comes in. All this money, every penny of it comes in. Look at how arduous it's been to get it. You had to do like the riddle of the Sphinx to raise this money. Yeah, it's 30 billion, but it's 30 billion in 3 bits. It's 50 billion, it's 15 billion, but with 35 billion based on whether you do this completely made up thing or you do an IPO, which will involve showing the innards of a company that 100% is overestimating its revenues and underestimating its costs. Yeah, I just don't think any of it makes sense. You can look at CoreWeave as an example as well, because CoreWeave's company, AI compute company, that's had to take on extra money. They had to raise $7.5 billion from Magnetar and Blackstone and done tons of money with them before as well. Nvidia just had to buy $2 billion worth of stock like a month ago. I mean, and they're barely hanging on. OpenAI needs magnitudes more than that. And remember, there was only $178.5 billion worth of data center credit deals done in the US last year. OpenAI needs way more than that. They're going to need $100 billion or more a year. The money isn't, while the money may exist, I don't even think the most concussed private equity is going to be able to justify this money. And also, it's more money than they have. The money may exist in the ether, but to funnel it into one company who is only ever going to be able to make good on it if they end up becoming bigger than Facebook in 4 years? I think everyone's doing the same thing, the extrapolation of the Disco Stew thing from The Simpsons. Might have mentioned that before. It's just like, based on this, Disco will be the biggest thing. It's just, based on this, we're at 13 billion today. That means in 5 years, we're going to... It's just nonsensical, but we live in a broken paradigm.
What happens to OpenAI if it, I mean, as you say, it goes out for another $100 billion funding round by the end of the year or start of next year, and it falls short?
I mean... Oracle might start freaking out a little bit, considering Oracle had to put that tweet out saying, yeah, this whole Nvidia thing doesn't affect us at all. We're fine. My t-shirt says it and all. I think that if OpenAI stumbles trying to find funding, everything will start to unravel. Because you have to remember, OpenAI, biggest customer of CoreWeave, biggest customer of Microsoft Azure. They've now extended their Amazon deal to $100 billion over 8 years. Just nonsensical. Just may as well say $1 trillion a year for 50 years. Just say whatever. Who cares? They're just making stuff up. They are a load-bearing startup. Now, you may think that means they'll get a bailout. No. A bailout won't fix the fact they owe everyone money. They promised everyone so much money. So I think that the moment their funding stumbles, you just see a ripple effect. But I mean, based on how the market's going today, and you never know how things change, I think everyone's kind of, I don't want to say they're done with it, but they are getting a little sick and tired of it. And how do you think they're going to feel in 3 to 6 months? They're probably going to feel even more sick and tired of it. And at that point, Sam Altman's going to come, please, sir, can I have some more? It's embarrassing.
To your point about OpenAI kind of being too big to fail in a way, with the amount that they're planning on spending, do you think that they're kind of also too big to prop up?
Yeah, that I like to say it's either too big to prop up or too small to tear into enough pieces to eat. There are a lot of people who are going to be pissed off at Sam Altman. Like, that's the 100% thing. He is an unsympathetic character who's talking about, oh, babies take more energy. They take 20 years of energy. He is like the least charming CEO. This is including like Mark Zuckerberg and Brian Chesky and such. He's a real clammy little man. Looks like an Xbox One game, like Quantum Break. He is going to be going into one of the worst funding environments in venture capital and private equity history. Private equity has got like 30,000 companies, like $3 trillion worth of stuff they can't sell, assets that are just sitting there stagnating. You're in a financial climate where everyone wants a dollar right now. And you, the biggest, hugest, most stinkiest AI startup, demands all the money in the world. Notice how they don't appear to have any follow-on investors. They don't actually appear to. Now, they're claiming they're going to add some more. There's rumors that MGX, so the Sauds are going to get involved. Cool. Great. The Sauds popping up, SoftBank popping up, really is like the Four Horsemen are here. Like, it's just like all of the guys from WeWork have returned. But that's the thing. I don't know what anyone's to do here, because it's too big to fail, sure, but like, OpenAI's failure would not have a significant economic impact in the sense that people's deposits aren't in OpenAI. People aren't buying bonds in OpenAI, and OpenAI is not a financial institution like Bear Stearns or Lehman Brothers or what have you. Indeed, I think the great financial crisis I mentioned in the past is these data centers. The thing is, it's either what I'm talking about or just handing one company $1 trillion. So it's, what are we doing? And right now, we're in, and I need to be clear that this is the depth of the thinking. These companies or the investors are like, well, they've said they're going to make $200 billion, so I believe them. And why do I believe them? Because in the past, the company made little money, then they made a lot when I put money into them. We are living in the ghosts of 2019. We are living in the past. We are living in what used to work, when money was easier to get, zero interest free was there, when there were more ideas that you could invest in. There were so many options for things that would grow and sell, to the point that all the venture capitalists and the private equities, they all believe that they are gods, and that all they do is they pump things full of money and off they go, and they spring more money and everyone makes money. Except private equity and venture capital has not done well since 2018. I think the majority of private equity firms are running under the S&P 500 returns-wise. Venture capital, even worse, barely getting an even dollar off of any venture capital funds since 2019. But because these people, the venture capitalists and the private equity people, haven't really been punished, they're just repeating the same cycle. They're doing the same thing. I think all of us say it kind of is on some level. Everyone's trying to pretend that we can go back to before the pandemic. The problem is here is generative AI is the perfect monster, the perfect hubris for all of this. It is generative AI in general, LLMs. It exploits the fact that a lot of investors and business people and frankly members of the media just don't know how things work. So if someone smart sounding says Claude Code can spit out an entire SaaS company, they'll go, yeah, that's true. Venture capitalists, because in the past all they had to do was shove money in someone's mouth and money would come out eventually, and they would just take their company public and it would get sold. This was the case before COVID. It isn't now, and it really hasn't been since. But OpenAI is the most egregious example, and I think LLMs are too. It's LLMs give through the API and being able to install generative AI features in your products, you're able to sell a product built on top of it. You as a company like Microsoft can buy a bunch of GPUs. Now you can offer GPU compute. Hey, you can attach this bollocks LLM stuff to you put it Copilot on Microsoft 365. Great. It's a thing for business idiot consultants to claim they're experts in. It's a thing for investors to speculate on. But the problem is the world doesn't work how it used to. It's no longer sufficient to just create entities that only grow. Their only point is growth, or to find ways for other people to grow. It's not about efficacy and it's not about actual outputs. We are at the end point of that. This is the punishment that everybody faces. This is the punishment for investors not understanding technology or even business and not investing in sustainable companies that can stand on their own feet. No, investment became about investing in companies that would show exponential growth so they could be hocked to someone else in an M&A deal or taken public, except we're facing less IPOs than we've ever seen. We're seeing all of the stuff you're seeing with SaaS is because private equity pumped them full of debt. The massive private equity picked up a ton of software companies like Zendesk, pumped them full of debt, pumped them full of cash. Nothing happened because nothing grows forever. The only thing that grows forever is cancer. OpenAI is just the most egregious example of this. What if we made something that actually made the business model up for us? Because LLMs are ultimately that. It's this dream of businesses where they have no customers, they don't have to build anything, they just have to own something. And they think they're building something to capture our futures when they're actually building the end of theirs.
This feels like a good a time as any to talk about the circular funding that's been going on for quite some time now, especially with NVIDIA releasing their earnings recently. I mean, do we know how much of NVIDIA's revenue that it's just announced is functionally coming from its investments that it's put in other companies to then buy its GPUs, essentially?
So, fun few facts from their annual report. So, 50%, more than 50% of NVIDIA's compute revenue, so their GPUs, went to hyperscalers. 36% of NVIDIA's revenue went to 2 customers. They also mentioned that a meaningful amount of revenue, this is how they worded it, came from one artificial intelligence research and development lab. Who could it be? Who could it be? I couldn't possibly say. So yeah, I mean, they had to put $2 billion in CoreWeave to keep them from coughing up blood and dying. They said $3.5 billion of lease guarantees. They had to backstop CoreWeave's leases because CoreWeave clearly was going to default some loans. NVIDIA's actually had to say that they may have to pay someone else's leases and their compute deals. Here's the craziest round trip one. How can I forget this? NVIDIA has committed in the next 6 years, I think, to $27 billion worth of compute. And they're doing $7 billion of that in this year. That is not what a healthy industry looks like. A healthy industry would not... They're literally paying their customers to buy their things. It's all a circle at this point. I truly would love to meet someone who is not somehow compensated by NVIDIA, who's buying GPUs at any kind of scale. Because I know for a fact that they're paying Microsoft for compute, for the Omniverse, which is their... seriously, it's their thing they use for robot simulation. Sounds cool. They're tens of millions, I'm talking of revenue. But nevertheless, yeah, NVIDIA is just feeding money directly back into its customers. And AMD's doing it too. AMD added, they didn't say how much, but they've said that they are doing multi-year cloud compute deals. It's just when you're paying your customers, that means that you don't have real customers. Or at least your real customers aren't paying you enough. Or making enough off of you. Sorry. Let me reframe the point. Your real customers, if your customers were really making money off of this, you wouldn't have to pay them money to make up for it. There we are.
Stuck the landing.
There we are.
It's probably something quite hard to figure out exactly, but how much has NVIDIA essentially spent on its own GPUs in exchange for equity in whoever will take it?
It's hard to say, but it's in the billions because they put a couple $100 million into CoreWeave's IPO, $2 billion of just buying stock from CoreWeave. They bought more stock. I can't remember how much. We're talking billions and billions. I know they invested in Lambda. I think they invested in Crusoe's and AI. They are building the data center in Stargate Abilene. I mean, it's hard to say. I've heard rumors that they do way more than this, but I can't substantiate them. But it was definitely in the billions. They pay Core. They have backstopped, I think, $6 billion worth of compute from CoreWeave. They did a similar deal with Lambda, another AI compute company. They're paying everyone off so that people will pay them for the GPUs, which they need debt for. It's all so unsustainable.
I've never owned a business myself. I'll be upfront about that. It doesn't sound like it makes much sense to be paying somebody to give you custom, but it also doesn't feel like it should be allowed. Is this allowed? Is this fine?
It shouldn't be legal. So what Mr. Huang over at Nvidia has been doing is what he does is he sells them the GPUs. Now, when I say sells them, I mean CoreWeave raises debt, and then Nvidia pays them for the compute so that CoreWeave can. And the reason that they do that is that when CoreWeave or an AI compute company raises money, they go, look, we've got a contract from someone. Like they're raising $8.5 billion because Meta signed a deal with them, for example. So by giving them revenue, Nvidia isn't so much paying them to buy the chips as it is guaranteeing them revenue so that their bankers don't shoot them. I don't think it should be legal. I think it should be completely illegal. I think that there should be at least hard limits on what you can invest. I don't think that if you sell something to someone, you should become a customer, or at least there should be hard limits, especially when it comes to hardware like this, or there should be percentage limits on your revenue, because on some level, it isn't money laundering. Just to be clear, people say, oh, it's illegal. It's legal. It's fully legal. I don't think it should be, because it's a fake economy. Because, yeah, if you're pumping your own stock by feeding your customers money so they keep buying your stuff, it's eating cardboard. But in the end, it ends up working out better for NVIDIA because NVIDIA doesn't have to pay anywhere near as much as they make on the chips.
And just to bring this full circle, one thing that also kind of doesn't make sense to me, feels maybe a little bit illegal, is that OpenAI, it was the way that I saw it framed was OpenAI had $1.4 trillion spending commitments on AI, on the AI build out.
Mm-hmm.
If you can then more than halve that, how is that? Doesn't sound like much of a commitment to me, because people would have made investments with this being the guiding light that they would spend all of this money.
Well, I mean, with OpenAI, it's legal because they're a private company. My thing is if we had a functioning SAC, I want to ask why the AMD OpenAI deal, 6 gigawatts of compute, meant to be the first gigawatt this year, that's just disappeared. Nothing happened with them. $100 billion deal with NVIDIA never really happened. And Mr. Huang even said that it was not a commitment. The 10 gigawatt deal with Broadcom never happened, disappeared. Allegedly, OpenAI was buying hundreds of thousands of wafers from SK Hynix and Samsung. This spread so far that people have been saying OpenAI bought 40% of the world's RAM. None of these deals are real. Every single one should be investigated by the SEC for attempted manipulation of stock. Every single one. Every single one. That should be. I don't see how that's not illegal, considering all of the deals were weasel worded, so they didn't say signed contract. It was definitive agreement, their favorite phrase, letter of intent. These aren't real things. That should not be legal. All of those stocks pumped on the news of something that was not real. Now, their argument would be, oh, well, we're still in the process. No, I don't think you should be able to announce it if it's not a firm, signed, sealed, delivered. And I think that investors got screwed there. I wish that we had an SEC that would actually investigate that, because it's disgusting and it will keep happening. I think the Oracle deal with OpenAI, I think they have a definitive contract. I still think that there need to be disclosures about the reality of OpenAI's ability to pay it. None of this will happen, of course, because we live in hell. But I think that the outcome here needs to be a very, very serious analysis of how the business and tech media has been used to manipulate stocks, because that is what's happening. These statements were made so that others would extrapolate them to mean that all of this, the $1.4 trillion number, I'm fairly sure was based on the idea that they were building 26 gigawatts with AMD, NVIDIA, and Broadcom. And without those, of course, it would be less because they never existed. And it's crazy that this is happening. I don't see how this is not a massive SEC issue. Maybe we just don't have regulation, but the ending will be that none of this was real. None of it happens. Maybe I'll even get proven right. Ugh, people won't like that.
Well, on that note, Ezatron, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed today's episode and you want to hear more like it, please consider liking and subscribing. Also, if you're not aware, you can listen to episodes of the Tech Report wherever you get your podcasts.
Professor Snyder, great to see you. I'm so happy to have you here in our
Portland's got a big budget deficit, so the mayor seems to think that defunding the police and defunding the fire department are the ways to go about getting that budget right-sided. Before we get into it, let's just take a look down memory lane of what happened in the past when we defunded the police in Portland, Oregon. Here we go.
Amid months of nightly protests and a historic spike in shootings and violent crimes,
it's kind of scary.
2 city commissioners are pushing to slash millions of dollars from the Portland Police Bureau's budget again.
Portland city leaders approved $15 million worth of cuts to the Portland Police Bureau. Several people called for a $50 million cut to the Bureau's budget.
The commissioners have promised to push for major cuts to the Portland Police Bureau, more than $18 million total. If this sounds familiar to you, you're not having deja vu. Back in June, the city council voted to cut $15 million from PPB. The move came amid historic anti-police protests following the death of George Floyd.
The mayor is recommending cutting 3% and 6% of the budgets of the fire and police bureaus, respectively, with the intention of keeping every fire station, like the one behind me, open and keeping every police officer on staff. However, the president of the Firefighters Association tells me that if these cuts are actually passed, they will almost certainly impact response times.
It's completely reckless. I just don't understand what he's thinking.
The president of the Portland Firefighters Association, Isaac McLennan, says removing the engine and cutting back hours would almost certainly increase response time. Mayor Wilson proposing more than $17 million in cuts to PPB, while again keeping all officers on staff. The police chief, Bob Day, reacted to this proposed budget today in a statement saying, in part, quote, cuts of this magnitude will have real and substantial impacts on our personnel, operations, and ability to deliver services at current levels.
Lest we forget, I want to go back to an article from July 7th of 2023. Because remember what happened? Oh, defund the police. Greatest concept ever. What could possibly go wrong? And then very, very quickly in 2021, so that happened 2020, 2021, by 2021 and 2022, you saw a shift to, oh my God, crime level just went kablooey to the moon. People murdering each other with wild abandon because the police were defunded and basically pushed back and said, hey, you know, you guys are the devil. You guys are responsible for all this. You guys are responsible for Fentanyl Floyd, even though he died of a fentanyl overdose, right? So
You don't know what you're talking about. Oh. And this moron.
can't do this just yet.
Hey, what's up everyone? Alex here from Computer Headquarters, and today we're going to talk about essence farming. Not only entry level, you just got into maps essence farming, but we're going to talk about what I think is the absolute pinnacle, most dollars, divines per hour essence farm that I don't think I've ever seen anyone make a video about it, by the way. So there's probably going to be a couple people in my comments doing the shh, like shut up, don't talk about it, because they don't want to give away their idea that maybe they're also doing it. But let's start with the bare minimum stuff. Like let's say you're new to the game, you came from PoE 2 and you just need something for a really entry level campaign. You just finished the campaign and you're just in maps, and like you need something just to make some money, to get some divines going. Well, essences pay, guys. They pay big time. So you can actually do them at a really low level. You can do them as soon as you can do basically white tier 7 maps. You can start doing essences. You might be dying because essences can be pretty rippy, but this is a good way to just start getting money, and then you get the money and then you upgrade your gear, and then the essences just keep getting easier and easier to do, right? So that's the idea. But let's talk about how cheap it is to even just try them. So like, let's say you have like almost no money. You have a couple of chaos you picked up in the campaign, and maybe you got to tier 7 maps. You got 10C or something to your name. Well, the good news is that whatever points you have on the tree, these are free, right? So right off the bat, getting to this prolific essence, this is going to give you an essence in your map, guaranteed. And as you get more points, there's more essence stuff that's up here in the middle. There's stuff over here to the left, and they're all really helpful. So I'm not going to go into the minutia on that right now because I want to talk more about the big farm strategy. But just the entry level essence, you can buy Ascent. This is going to give you max tier. These are expensive essences. This is a 1C scarab. You can buy adversaries. These are half a C, so you get 2 of these for half a C. And then you can just get regular essence scarabs for like less than, I think it's half a C also. So just flood whatever you can buy. You'll literally go into one map and you'll come out with way more money than you put in, even at a tier 7. Like, and then you can just, then all of a sudden now you can afford, I think you can probably afford a calcification after just opening that. And if you guys want me to test that for you, I'd be just like a, noob version. I could do that, but I don't want to talk about the noob version. I want to talk about the big boy version, which is what I have here on this tree. So big boy version is that you're going to be doing a map that has empowered mirage. If you want to go real crazy, what you want to also make sure is that you're getting increased number of rare monsters, and then you're going to be using Sinistral Scarab to double that. You want to make sure you're taking as much explicit modifier effect on the tree, and sorry, I was just looking at that and I'm like, why am I taking that point? Literally because of what I just said. And what I'm doing as an additional thing, just for a little bit of extra money, is I'm taking heist to get the rogue stuff. So because since I'm going to be in the full mirage, I'm going to have a good chance of getting some of those expensive blueprints. I'm also taking some scarab stuff because you will kill some essences that drop some good scarabs, and we're going to be killing the boss, of course. So we're going to be wanting to get the good scarabs off, the good scarab drops off of bosses, which I think is this point right here, final map drop, final map boss, and then I think there's one over here, maybe 2 unique monsters in your maps drop more scarabs. So, but the most important thing to talk about this entire tree is right here, Crystal Resonance. A map boss is granted a random essence modifier from any imprisoned monsters slain in your maps. Using a Vault Orb on imprisoned monsters in your maps replaces all essences with one, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so basically what this means is that the bosses are going to be completely jam-packed with essences. These are like extra free essences that you're getting, and you're not going to be voling anything anymore. There's a argument that you might want to say, okay, yeah, I do want to still vol, but it's just I think it's a waste of time, and you can just go through and just kill the stuff instead, not even worry. You can listen to music, watch YouTube on another monitor, whatever is sorry, if your build can handle it, by the way, you don't want to die. But I can do that if I wanted to. So anyway, this is the idea of the tree. You can pause the video right here. Let me make sure you have a good view. So go ahead and pause the video if you want to screenshot that and enter it exactly like I did. But then I already kind of touched on some of the stuff. This map right here is really expensive. These are like 120 C4 probably. Well worth it, okay? And I'm using Calcification, Ascent, Sinistral, 2 adversaries, okay? Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily a big deal to this number of rare monsters and a Sinistral Scarab. You can easily take that, just do any fully Mirage map, and then take Sinistral out and throw in just another Essence Scarab. Some people like to do stability. Let's look at all the Essence Scarabs real quick before we jump into the map. So you get 3 more essences if you do this Scarab right here. We're of course using Ascent. Stability is for corrupting, which I don't know. I don't think that it's worth doing it with now that we're doing the put all the stuff on your boss thing, and then of course calcification. And some people love adaptation. I think it's a waste of time as well. I know a lot of people make big money, but it's more brain work for you. I love that just turn your brain off, just kill a bunch of essences and just pick them up. And it's insane amounts. So another thing I want to do before we jump into the map. Actually, this is like my second time filming this, and the first time I did it, I collected a bunch of data, and there were some changes I made from collecting the data that made it better. And so this video is actually just more complete than it would have been if I did it the other way. So this is I did 10 maps, exactly like what I'm saying I'm about to do right here. And my total divines of gear I got of straight just essences, 10 maps, 27 div. I also dropped I think 1 divine orb, a Valdos puzzle box, and about Black Barya and some other, it's like it came out to 30 or 34 div worth of stuff. And then our Scarab investment's only 24C, 25C per map. It's almost nothing. And then really the map is the most expensive part. So, if you're going big boy maps, like I said, I'm doing 120, 150C. That does eat quite a bit into your cost. But you're seeing that we're in just pure essences. We're at 2.7 div of essences per map. And so if you're spending half a div on the map itself, it's who cares, right? Now, this is if you were to sell every little essence, and this data is now a week old, so don't quote me on it, but this is if you're selling wailings and screamings and shriekings, because some of them are actually pretty good for selling. You get a lot more money if you sell them individually, but it's a lot of busy work. This is if I took all of these essences and upgraded all of them, and then it came out to about 23 divine. So you lose about 4 divine by upgrading them all to the maximum deafening level, but it's just, it's one of those things where you probably the best way is to pick and choose which ones are selling for pretty big money and then upgrade everything else. And so it's somewhere in between the 23 and the 27. You get the idea. I also ran some maps doing what most other people do, which is where you upgrade the med stuff, Misery, Envy, Dread, and Scorn. Those all upgrade to more expensive versions of essences. And when I did that 10 map trial, it was significantly worse. 10 divine worse. It's not I know 10 maps of both things. That's not very many maps. Or most people will be you need to run 100. It's just, guys, just trust me. The upgrading thing, not only are you wasting more time, and it takes more time to do the map, you're making almost half the money, guys. It's stupid. Don't even do it. It's fun, and it is not as profitable. But you also might not be, if you're not capable of doing the version that I'm doing, then maybe it's which ones are selling for pretty big money and then upgrade everything else. And so it's somewhere in between the 23 and the 27. You get the idea. I also ran some maps doing what most other people do, which is where you upgrade the med stuff, Misery, Envy, Dread, and Scorn. Those all upgrade to more expensive versions of essences. And when I did that 10 map trial, it was significantly worse. 10 divine worse. It's not I know 10 maps of both things. That's not very many maps. Or most people will be you need to run 100. It's just, guys, just trust me. The upgrading thing, not only are you wasting more time, and it takes more time to do the map, you're making almost half the money, guys. It's stupid. Don't even do it. It's fun, and it is not as profitable. But you also might not be, if you're not capable of doing the version that I'm doing, then maybe it's the only one for you right now. So, yeah, okay, let's jump back into PoE and let's do a map. I want you guys to see what it looks like. So, I'll probably so a couple other little things. I ended up switching my ring. I had found this ring. I think this is from a Valdos. Yeah, this is from a Valdos puzzle box map I ran, and I identified it, and I got triple movement speed. In the first video I recorded, I was super slow. But with this ring, I'm way faster. I'm not mage blood fast, but I'm pretty zippy, and it makes the whole experience a lot better. So And then I also had just changed some things in my build to let me deal with Reflect because I was not Reflect immune before. So I dropped a bunch of tankiness and some damage and some energy shield just to be able to handle Reflect stuff and be able to do more map mods. So anyway, we're going to do City Square. I'm not going to do a Astrolabe. And then I can actually drop Astrolabes, which is great. So it's a little bit more money. But you might want to do Astrolabes because you can get some good drops from them, right? So that's totally up to you guys on that part. But yeah, City Square is the place to be, in my opinion. There's other maps where you can get more essences. It's just not as enjoyable of an experience, in my opinion. So let's go ahead and... Oh, there's Delhi on here, huh? Cool. I don't mind Delhi. So we're just going to go in, we're going to kill everything, we're going to pick up everything. There's an argument about, maybe I should be putting like a essence loot filter on. That's totally a thing you should do. I'm just being lazy and not doing it, and I'm just picking all of it up. And I'm going back this way because I have Delhi. I don't know if you guys understand how Delhi works, but I kind of do, and so that's why I'm hooking back here. Because I don't want to... I want to get as many rewards as possible. Actually, it's probably dumb of me to do that because since I'm not spec'd into Delhi, am I going to really get that many orbs at the end? Probably not. So, I should say, this is not an easy map, and this is essences. This is not like for a glass cannon build, okay, guys? Like, well, I mean, maybe if you do enough damage, maybe you can kill everything before you get hit. But I prefer to just not care if I get hit. Everyone's just wailing on me all the time in here, and I'm standing there picking up essences. Like right now, I'm in the pops, the things going off like this right here, and I don't die to it because I'm super tanky. If you want to know more about my build, I've got lots of videos.
Hello.
We watch this guy. 2000 hours in Path Extra 2. Going back. Or starting Diablo 4. Let's watch that one. I bet this is going to be great. Oh, I have to get smaller because I'm in the way.
Hail and Matches Kingdom. As you can see, I decided to download Diablo 4 and give you my honest review, how it feels compared to Path of Exile 2, in which I...
he's playing on Xbox. He's playing on Xbox. Damn, almost 1400 hours. I'm still below 300. And I'm playing since the release.
Got more than 2000 hours on 2 accounts, while I got 0 experience in Diablo 4. Decision to make this video came to me when I realized that Diablo have moved release date for upcoming season 11. They basically decided to release the new season on the same launch day with 0.4 Path of Exile 2, which is insanely big release with new endgame changes and also free weekend. And probably this is the first thing we need to compare, game prices. Yep. To fully enjoy Diablo 4 you need a base game and also DLC. You may say they not cost a lot, because they basically priced the same as skin bundle from Path of Exile 2. But even though Path of Exile is kinda paid right now, because you need to pay for early access, in reality Path of Exile 2 will be completely free to play game. So I waited a little bit and got my nice deal for Diablo 4 on a recent weekend. Downloaded.
Nice. Yeah, I wouldn't play. I would not pay. What is this UI? What is this? This looks like from I don't even know. Why does this look like that? It looks so cheap. Why does everything here looks like it's from a cheap knockoff? Why does everything here look so bad? Oh, is it because it's a Xbox? Might be. Might be. Because looking at this looks like this is just bad. This looks like just bad. It's just horrible. Nothing here looks good. Is this even Diablo? I don't know.
120 gigabytes, and welcome to buy this.
Warning. There was a problem logging in. Code 1.
Yeah, they got
Of
AI
course.
voiceover for everything that's going on the screen.
Wait, what? No. No. Oh god. I already hate it. This is horrible. I hate it with a passion.
It's pretty weird, so I instantly turned it off and enjoyed cinematic. This cinematics is always insanely good. Yeah, Blizzard know how to make them. It kinda sets up the story. Basically there's a village, and somewhere below this village there is cave with monsters and bunch of thieves who try to steal some treasures, but there's actually no treasures behind this door. There's only troubles. Some unknown forces destroys party of adventurers, then a Quan Chi appears. He's actually a necromancer or ritualist, and he finished a ritual by summoning some big demon lady. Her name is Lilith, and basically we are ready to play Diablo 4. At least that's what I thought. After going through 5 minutes of
Oh, don't tell me there's more. Is there a tutorial or something like that? Something stupid?
cinematics, I finally can create my class. There's 6 of them right now, and I decided to stop on a druid, because druid will be in a new expansion of Path of Exile 2. We can customize our character, and
Oh boy, this video is old. From when is that? And why is it not full HD? Jesus Christ, YouTube. From when is this? 4 months ago? So it might be 5.
Zara, will you not like this?
Man, this looks horrible.
I decided to make Afra Druid, because Afra looks cool. Modes are kinda the same as in Path of Exile. And also we got an option to skip campaign. Of course I will play campaign, and right now I can select difficulty. To watch a bunch of cinematics. Yeah, they will be made on a game engine, and it kinda cool, because right now we can see our character in game, in cinematics. It's pretty, like, interesting, I would say.
Why did the fire look so bad? It literally looked like it was running and below 20 FPS.
And immersive, until finally I can start the game. We'll get here later, because right now I want to compare it to start in Path of Exile 2. In Path of Exile 2 there is basically little cinematic that when you load the game first it lasts for 1 minute, and then before you start the game after choosing your character it takes like 5 seconds. You can decide what's better, but let me explain why I think Path of Exile 2 formula is superior. We escape Executioner and run towards a village. In village there's a bunch of zombies and we need to figure out what's going on. So technically we dropped right into an action, with a bunch of mysteries that we need to figure out. In Diablo 4, while they creating nice grim mood, they actually unveiled everything that will happen after. There's a village with cultists, they are bad, so beware. Also, that's where I am after playing 25 minutes of Diablo 4. And that's where I am after playing 25 minutes of Path of Exile 2. And I'm not hating, it's different experience.
Wait, 25 minutes to get to the boss of the first act? Really? I'm barely through the second zone in 25 minutes. What the hell? I don't believe that.
It's normal, and I just want to showcase this difference. So finally I met my first enemies. It was wargs, or basically wolves. And we can compare feeling of combat.
This
I
looks
would say
horrible.
it feels okay, but something is really off. Basically there is no impact, or almost no impact. There is funny
The animation is so bad. Why is the animation so bad? The animations in Path of Exile 1 look better. Way better.
Impressive.
I don't even compare it to Path of Exile 2. Path of Exile 1 is already better than this. What is this? This is dumb. This is really, really dumb. It's incredibly... Why? Why would you? Why? This is bad. This is just bad.
Ragdolls, so whenever you crush wolves or crush objects, there's ragdolls going all over the place, and in some situations it's really funny, but I don't know, maybe it's animations, there's technically no feeling of really big impact. However, definitely it's on completely another level compared to other modern ARPGs. Also, since we are technically in tutorial level right now, basically with just starting campaign, let's point out that atmosphere and overall feeling is really great. We're somewhere in the mountains, we're lost, it's looking pretty good. Sadly, this atmosphere will be completely lost when we reach open world. Yeah, there's a lot less contrast, visual clarity is pretty like meh. And if you want to say, well, in campaign it's good, no.
This looks so washed out. Is it me or does this look washed out? I think the desert in Path of 2 looks way better. Even the deserts in Path of 1 look better. Why? I mean, sure, there's just a little bit of sand on rock, but damn, this looks bad. This looks not great. The coloring is... The mobs on the ground and the ground, they kind of getting mushed together. Is it just me that feels that way? I really don't like this. This looks bad.
It's good in tutorial, because campaign actually set up in the open world. So after clearing tutorial level, we will get into open world immediately. Actually, we even right now in open world, and I guess I can skip this first quest and just go hunt monsters. And let's not forget, we need to compare this to Path of Exile 2 combat. In Path of Exile 2 you feel impact a lot more. You feel how you hit enemies with quarterstaff, how you shoot them with shotgun aka crossbow. You feel impact when enemies touch you, when they push you, so in my opinion Path of Exile 2 game feel is like far more superior. But let's get back to our Afra droid. After hunting wolves for a while, I got to the village and finished my first quest that instantly gave me enough experience to get level 2. And we can check skill system and how...
Wait. The mobs didn't give you level 2? Why? Why? Is there so little mobs? Why? Or what is this game? Yeah. It's a tutorialized game design, yes. It's more tutorialized. In Path of Exile, you don't really get experience from doing quests. So yeah, it's understandable.
But it will work in terms of build crafting. Every level we get points that we can allocate into different skills. Part of the tree is initially blocked, and we initially can see different branches. There's bear skill, there's wolf skill, and bunch of elemental skills. Also, as you can see, they branch out, so we can kinda alterate how skills will work a little bit. I decided to start as bear and crushed wolves a lot better right now. New skill helped me to defeat first boss. It's kinda still mini boss in tutorial level. Speaking about boss fights, well, all abilities is a lot more telegraphed if they can be avoided, and we can avoid it by using dodge button, so it's similar to Path of Exile 2 dodge, but it's completely different mechanic wise, because you can't use it to dodge basic attacks, for example, at least in my experience. After defeating few monsters, we can watch bunch of cinematics again, and again Blizzard nailed it. Yeah, cinematics adds a lot of emotion and feeling to campaign, it feels great, it looks great, but we are...
Yes, and I will say it, this is better than Path of Exile 2 and 1. I wish Path of Exile 1 and 2 had cinematics, actual cinematics, you know? Telling the story, building something up, would be cool. Now, do they enhance the game to a degree where the money and time you spend for that is worth it compared to the gameplay? No. Now the cinematic that Path of Exile 2 has is good. You know, the opening, the thing is good. It looks awesome. sets the tone for the world and the campaign, so it's good. It's absolutely
Why
good.
is that still showing
and
up?
I'm happy that they have it. Yes, that's literally it.
In an open world right now, so I'm following a road and clearing monsters on my way if I want to. If I don't want, I can use horse. Anyway, let's dive a little bit deeper in skill system of Diablo 4. While on the surface it looks like we got unlimited options, most important part of any skill is what role it will fulfill. In Pacific Exile 2, right from the beginning, you need to kinda dive a little bit deep into the system and understand what skills can do, and then determine what they will do based on support gems you will insert.
Yes.
This actually adds a lot of flexibility to skills. For example, we can add some support gems and it will increase power of freeze on our cold damage skills, and we will freeze enemies and disable them a lot faster. To remove them from
Yes.
resistance with different abilities that takes a little bit time to detonate. On other hand, we can add more area to the skill and more damage, therefore it will be more useful against packs of smaller enemies, but it will be worse in terms of freezing and disabling bosses, so you actually can adapt your playstyle. In Diablo 4, while you definitely
Yes, and that stuff goes deep. It goes really deep. I'm, for example, multiplaying a druid as a caster. Literally, I went from doing the bear form melee to the wyvern kind of melee kind of distance to just caster. And it's really fun. It's really fun playing a caster druid. Because your apocalypse ability that you get from your shaman ascendancy, that thing is up almost all the time.
Why do you aid this bound criminal?
Because of all the elemental damage you do. It's awesome. It's awesome. And that thing is really good against bosses and groups of enemies. Because it just rains down on everything. It's awesome.
can change how skills work, they will be mostly the same and will fulfill the same role as it intended.
Also, you could have two of the same skill with different support skills, so they work differently depending on what you want. Group clear or boss damage, you know, you can do that. It's complicated. In Path Exile 2 and Path Exile 1, it's easier, but not really. If it would be easy to get 6 link, then it would be easier in Path Exile 1.
For example, first skill that I unlock will always increase my resource, and second skill that I unlock will spend resource. It's area of effect attack, which is big slam, it's pretty cool, but there is no way how I can change my first skill to start making some other tasks beside fulfilling my mana bar. I will call it like this, but basically we're fulfilling some type of resource. Also, I tried different characters, and different characters got different mechanics. Still kinda the same. First attacks will help you get your resource, and all other attacks will spend it. This approach is actually very easy to get used to. Basically, you don't need to think at all, just invest your points into a bunch of skills and they will work. While if you try to randomly do some stuff in Path Exile 2, maybe you will end up with some weird stuff that just deals 0 damage. But there's a way how you actually can change how skills work and feel, in some cases pretty dramatically. System called Codex of Power. Basically, you will find a bunch of items, and items will be legendary with passives that will change how your skills work. After unlocking any aspect, you can craft it completely deterministically. In my opinion, it looks pretty similar to support gem system in Path of Exile 2. There's another endgame system called Paragon.
I mean, I would be surprised if they just looked at Path of Exile 1 or 2 and then, yeah, you just do that, but
Inevitable.
in a different way.
I will bathe this world
Would be surprised at that at all.
It's a big board of passive skills, and most of them are pretty boring. Actually, all of them are pretty boring, they just gives you more and more damage. After reaching level 60, you continue to get experience in this board, and it goes up to level 300. I can compare the system to passive skill tree in Path of Exile 2. However, in passive skill tree in Path of Exile 2, there's some dramatic changes in how your character plays out. Also, passive tree in Path of Exile 2 is shared across all characters. And in Diablo 4 we got a bunch of boards that is predetermined by your class. So if you're interested in creating some cool builds, actually Diablo 4 is pretty bad game for this. While on the surface there's a bunch of systems that can be cool, for my taste it lacks sandbox feel. Basically,
which is a huge problem. That's why I prefer PathXL 1 and 2, because I can go there and build something. Literally, I can build something. For example, in PathXL 1, this league, I first went with Holy Hammer, which didn't work out for me because I'm trash at the game. And then I went with Static Strike and Living Lightning, and I crushed the campaign. At least the bosses. All uniques died so fast. And with uniques, I mean unique bosses. They just melted. Some fights did last just 10 seconds. It's insane.
Know pain.
Now, one major huge reason for that is I went with Templar into Guardian and got a Sentinel, and that thing just does a lot of damage. On top of Static Strike doing a lot of damage. So yeah, I just melted everything. It's great. I have a video about that build, by the way, on my on Wildshot Plays on my second YouTube channel, and I have the video on my Rumble. Just can look it up if you want.
Everything feels predetermined. For example, if we go for bear skills, most of them will have some ways to activate overpower mechanic. If you go for werewolf, they will have a bunch of ways how you can activate vulnerable mechanic. And of course, when you're trying to make your character powerful, you want to max out these mechanics. Therefore, while there's definitely a room for experimentation and mixing builds, you can do werewolf, bear, human casting mix. In 99% of the cases, if you go for werewolf, you want to stick with werewolves throughout the game. That's me 15 minutes in the game, I'm slashing and smashing. That's me 40 minutes in the game, I'm still slashing and smashing. And that's me around 4 hours in the game, again, slashing and smashing.
What even is that thing? It literally looks like a troll, a cave troll from The Lord of the Rings, you know? I can't make out what that creature should be. Maybe it's a bear. Might be a bear, actually, yeah.
I don't know if you look at this exactly like me, but I see exactly zero difference in game design and area diversity when I go through these dungeons. So comparing it just to first act of PathXL 2, well, we got forest, we got different lakes, we got different villages, Mushroom Kingdom underground, and overall more clear look and style. There's definitely something that looks better in Diablo 4, but honestly I don't know what, because to me this look is far more superior and interesting, and a lot.
Yeah. When I look at this, Diablo looks washed out. Everything goes into everything else, because everything has the same color. Literally everything has the same. Look at the mobs here, they are gray. What else is gray? Everything else. Even the water here, I guess that it's water, looks somewhat gray, not blue. Even here, the blue has... Yeah, okay, but... It's still gray everywhere, and now... Look at this. There is gray, there's also orange and yellow. And there's the red outline of the enemy that's doing something, and he is lightning. I think he's shocked.
Just Mushroom Kingdom underground, and overall.
And look at this. This looks great. You have green as the underlying color of, you know, and it's grass, and then you have the vines that are grain brownish, more gray, and red thorns. That's very distinct. The enemies have different colors, even on themselves. Then the enemies have different colors compared to the other enemies. This looks way better. This looks way more clean.
More clear look and style. This definitely...
And look at
underground, and overall more clear look and style.
Look at this. This is very distinct from everything else. So you know to get out of this. Because you can literally just see it. And in Diablo 4 you can. This is good game design.
Well, there's definitely something that looks better.
This isn't. You can barely see the outlines of this the red here. Because it's also partly gray and the ground texture is gray, so if you don't actually pay really close attention, you don't see it. You just don't.
In Diablo 4, but honestly I don't know what, because to me this look is far more superior and interesting, and a lot more cool to progress through instead of same looking dungeons. Yeah, speaking about progression, it's really important topic for a RPG. Some parts of Diablo 4 progression is really good, and I enjoyed them a lot, mostly because they kinda separated. For example, in Path of Exile 2, you instantly from the beginning need to understand how skill system work, how passive skill.
This looks absolutely boring. He's literally just walking around, hitting things, and then basically nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. If I play Path of Exile 2 and play a melee class and hit someone, things happening. Depending on what the skill does, right? But here, nothing is happening. Literally nothing is happening. It's like hitting someone with a standard attack. You got the standard attack that the weapon has, just no effects to it. It does nothing, just a little bit of damage. That's what this is.
Tree system work and how support gem system work. Well, in Diablo 4 they technically separated in different game parts. You kinda starting only with skill gem system and there is no support gem. Then throughout the campaign in the mid game you will unlock kinda support system. Basically you will be able to craft your gear with aspects that will affect your skills. And then, closer to the end game, you will unlock Paragon tree, which is kinda passive skill tree. So all the systems is designed to not overwhelm player, which is really good. But there is a bad part.
I agree.
They actually designed in very strict way. As I told you, the first skill will always be designed to give you basically resource to use all other skills. At the same time, it can be kinda altered with one or two options. One option can give you ability to sometime make 2 attacks instead of 1, and second option will give you ability to poison enemies. Later you will find that one of your skills is actually scaling with poison damage or deals extra damage to poisoned enemies. Therefore, you technically got no other option than to pick this poison damage to just increase damage of your other skills. Yeah, it's simplified explanation, but technically that's how all skills works in the game. In Path of Exile 2, every skill also got some idea behind it, but since it doesn't matter what class you play, you got shared passive skill tree, you got same support gems based on your weapon and your skills, you actually in sandbox mode, and that's why there's loads of builds and fun interactions appear, and that's
for the ones who never played Path of Exile or any of these games. In Path of Exile, you literally can play a witch, you know, spellcaster, right? You can use a crossbow. Oh, you wanna use a melee weapon? Yeah, sure. Go and bash people's heads, and you can do that. And you can play a warrior and be a caster. Theoretically, it's hard. It's hard to get to that point, but it's possible.
Impressive, but futile.
You can do that. And it's great, it actually works. Like I said earlier, I'm playing my druid as just a caster, and it's working out great. It's great. It's awesome. I love it.
That's what make ARPG really fun for me. Ability to be creative and make builds like Burning Elephant, which is completely non-intended way to burn bosses in just few seconds. Based on my research, it's completely impossible in Diablo 4, because even Paragon boards is tied to a character and predetermined. Again, for example, in Path of Exile 2 you can make your support gems to give your ice skill ability to freeze enemies more often. The better choice will be always to increase your damage. But is it wrong to make your ice skill freeze enemies more often? Well, it's not. It's just not very optimal for fast clearing speed. But in Diablo 4, when I choose my Paragon boards, well...
But if you freeze your enemies all the time, that's a defensive measure that keeps you alive. And that's, by the way, why you have more than just one skill in Path of Exile 2. One for clearing, one for bossing. And you can combine them both while you're bossing. I do that all the time. It's literally the norm.
There's 8 of them and we can pick only 5. Of course, if we're playing werewolf, we want to pick 2 of them which is werewolf focused, and other 3 will be just generic tables that just adds more damage. If you experience Diablo 4 player, drop in comments your examples of creative and interesting builds, but I haven't found a single one. Still, I want to end this comparison on positive note. Lack of build diversity and creativity you can put into the build crafting can be really good, because when I play Path of Exile 2, even though I like to go in blindly, still I do some research before going in. I read patch notes, I check what new support gems we will have, what changes will be, so at least I get some expectations how build will work and will it actually be possible to play something like I want to play. Well, in Diablo 4 I got in blindly, and you're actually looking at endgame gameplay right now that is played on almost highest difficulty, and I got here without any research at all. Yeah, I got in completely blindly, and all systems are so simple, build crafting is so simple that it's hard to mess up. So in terms of beginner friendly experience, yeah, Diablo 4 is just awesome. You can just turn your brain off, smash some buttons on your keyboard or controller and have some fun. If the stuff that is on screen right now is fun to you. But while it's really easy to start playing Diablo 4, is it still easy in the end game? Because end game is basically why lots of players play ARPGs. We like to go around, kill some monsters, become more powerful, get some juicy drops and improve our character even more. And end game in Diablo 4 is as simple as everything we talked about before.
That's bad. So, when it comes to endgame, I'm really struggling in Path of Exile 1 and 2. More in 2 than in 1, because in 2 it's literally just boring. I think the maximum map level that I have in Path of Exile 2 is 4 or 5 right now. And that's the highest I ever got, because just boring. The maps are just boring. And some of the maps I really just don't want to do. But I'm kind of, oh yeah, I'm there, so whatever. In Path of Exile 1, I can literally just... I think the maps in Path of Exile 1 are better. Not because of the size or anything like that, just because I think they are just better. The end game is just better. It's that simple. It's really just that. Now the only reason I would play Path of Exile 2 more in maps is to make my build better, but my build at the moment, at least my druid build, is I can't really do a lot with it because I'm lacking resources. And I can't build what I would need to have more survivability, which is the main problem. Not even the damage. My damage is fine. Could be better, of course, but it's fine. But yeah, that's a problem. So I wouldn't look forward to an endgame like in Diablo, because it's even more boring to me.
Basically, we hop on our mount and run into area that is overwhelmed by devilish hell forces. In this area there will be few points of interest and we just need to clear or finish some quests nearby. But all the quests are kinda the same. For example, we're running around and just by doing this we're destroying cultists. At the same time there was some big monsters and yeah, they also part of separate quests. Closing rift.
This is literally just a quest from World of Warcraft. Oh, go there and kill X amount of enemies. It's literally just that. And that's boring.
Time there was some big monsters and yeah, they also part of separate quests. Closing rift.
I think I need some chaos resistance. Or my grandma lived on a farm and they would.
Zero Point 4.0 has created some seriously broken builds, and with 0.5.0 coming soon, this is your last chance to take advantage of them. Here are the best builds in the game right now, and the ones you should be watching going into the next patch. Starting off with the Pathfinder, Spiral Volley, and Toxic Growth. This next build is one of the best all-rounders in Path of Exile 2 right now, with insane clear speed, strong boss damage,
Don't drink the water.
Ladies and gentlemen, how's it going? You know, another day, another time to yap about the old AI bubble situation. Now, I don't make these videos because honestly I enjoy watching things crash and burn. I'm making these videos because I really feel like we live in a world where things are rapidly moving into the worst possible direction at the behest of a few companies. So I don't know if you've been reading this, but like companies like Facebook and Microsoft have been laying off thousands of fucking jobs by effectively telling people that, hey, listen, we're going to get rid of hiring actual people, and because we put billions of dollars into artificial intelligence, we're going to be using that to basically write most of our software. Now, of course, obviously, this was par for the course. A lot of these companies enjoy making more money, getting rid of the jobs, and ultimately, that's the future of it, right? You know, this kind of technology has been so destructive that I really feel like in the next 4 or 5 years, one of the biggest talking points that will remain is how the fuck do we make it so that people don't keep losing their jobs, right? You know, I've seen it time and time again. I've seen it with like people in the games industry where anytime AI generated shit pops, they hate it, right? But even if you hate AI generated stuff, a lot of games with those assets have been making crazy awards. They've been absolutely played. Games like Crimson Desert, which have AI-generated shit all the way in them, that was discovered after its release, still is one of the most played games. Obviously, games like Expedition 33 won like basically every fucking award you could imagine. Turns out it was experimenting with generative AI stuff, and people were, yeah, there was anger, there was backlash, but ultimately, it was still one of the most beloved games. And one of the things that I don't see people really talk about all that much is like how many people lose their jobs because they write code. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not about writing code, it's about how much code can you write. So if you're a talented software developer, you can still, do your job, write it with AI, and just overview and see what the AI did and make your little fixes that way. But today, something huge happened that I think ultimately will also contribute to the AI bubble, kind of crashing. Now, when I say the AI bubble's popping, I try to keep my the explanation of this very much in normal land. I'm not here telling you that the AI bubble is going to pop and the whole economy is going to crash to the fucking ground. Frogs are going to rain from the sky. It's all over. It's done. No, the reality of it is that a few companies will survive. It's like the .com shit. Like pets.com will fail, but companies like Microsoft, the people that actually contribute, in this technology field, will survive. Now look, one of the things about AI is that it's very expensive. And the prices have basically been going up to the point that, people have genuinely had issues with how bad it's becoming. So for instance, if you were people that were using shit like Claude, for instance, a couple weeks ago, there were people who were bitching and complaining that, hey, the quality on this shit dropped. And even companies like Anthropic, they were like, yeah, let's check what happened. Yeah, by the way, on March 4th, we changed the default reasoning from high all the way to medium. So they were doing this because, let's be real, a lot of people are using this technology now, and it's gotten so computationally expensive that in order to scale up, you have to kind of lobotomize these models a little bit so that you can distribute the actual intelligence that you have to a whole bunch of people around you. And the reality of it is people are kind of getting fed up. The prices are going up. The quality is somewhat diminishing. A model that was good a week ago is becoming fucking stupid in the next week. So a big thing happened last night, and one of the reasons I'm making this video is something called DeepSeek V4 dropped. And if you're getting a lot of deja vu, remember about a year and a half ago, we talked about DeepSeek. Like I showed you on my channel. China came out of nowhere. They trained this shit for a fraction of the cost, and all of a sudden, DeepSeek was this model that dropped where you could download, run it even locally on your system. Even the big, super frontier, hundreds of billions of parameters you could run on your system. People daisy-chained Macs together just so they could run this shit on their actual home network. So the thing about it is, for the first time in that period, I saw that AI models could reason, right? Like back then, when you typed something into ChatGPT, it just printed out information. But DeepSeek was the first time you could type something to the model and you could see it actually think before it gave you the final output, which was kind of cool. People looked at it and they were like, shit, this thing seems sentient. It's actually fucking thinking. But the reality is it's just reasoning, and that led to a substantially better output than what we had seen before. DeepSeek was so good at the time that if you were a company like Nvidia, your stocks crashed that day. Like China literally sent a fucking ballistic missile to the AI industry in America. So they actually did release something today which didn't do the same effect, but I think it's actually pretty impressive nonetheless. So for instance, according to the guys over at Artificial Analysis, if you look at it really quickly, these are the highest models right now. The best model in terms of intelligence is actually ChatGPT's extra high, which people use for, coding and everything. Now, obviously, after that comes Claude Opus, and of course, then Gemini, then ChatGPT again. But behind them trail these open source models. So things like Kimi, Mimo, and of course, most importantly, DeepSeek version 4 Pro Max. So obviously, compared to, say, Claude Opus, which is scoring at 57, DeepSeek scoring at 52. Now, benchmarks are benchmarks, but real-world stuff is real-world stuff. And of course, because it's been less than 24 hours, we still have some time to check. But the most important thing here, which is one of the reasons why I think this is actually really bad for the AI bubble, is the pricing. So the prices on DeepSeek can run you around $2.20 for 1,000,000 tokens, as compared to Claude Opus, which is $10. So looking at the graph, obviously the intelligence is lower by a few points here, but the prices are substantially different. Now, a lot of this could be that the Chinese government has probably found ways to just constantly subsidize this shit, so people use their models over the really expensive stuff. But the other realities is that DeepSeek is genuinely designed in a way for it to be actually optimized in comparison to the American stuff. So for instance, right over here with DeepSeek, with this new model that they have, they've got 1,000,000 token context length, which context in this case is like sort of how much the model can be aware of. So you can stick a lot more code, a lot more documents, a lot more context, so that when it actually produces its final output, it can have all of that to factor and gauge and weight and give you a much better response down the road. Now, there's a lot of technologies that are kind of, sort of coming in this situation, and you'd have to read the paper from like DeepSeek to make it make any sense. But the general idea is that they've come up with a lot of optimizations in many ways to achieve these context lengths, to achieve the ability to deliver this level of AI for pennies on the dollar. Like we're talking a quarter, a third of the price compared to the big guys. See, look, a lot of this AI industry is centered around a place where the American models are looking to make a lot of fucking money, because ultimately they're sitting on VC money. And, for instance, eventually it gets to a point where, let's say you invest $10 billion into a company, you want it to actually give you returns on your financial investment. You can't just be burning money forever. But the reality is, with this technology, the more intricate it becomes, the more expensive it's becoming over time. And you can kind of see it, right? Like we're reaching that sort of end where things from subscriptions are being cut out. You can start to see that, they're making the models more lobotomized some days, but the costs are still going up. The actual, the pop starts to become more visible. Now, of course, on the Chinese side, they're not doing it altruistically. Let's be completely honest. A lot of these companies also probably want to release, they want to get the market share. They want to get the world moving on to them. They want to be the dominant focus. They want to be the people that, are sort of the AI leaders in the world. This is where you go to use your artificial intelligence technology that ain't going to go anywhere else. Now, in their case, obviously, they've kind of aimed for efficiency. Apparently, back in the day, when a lot of these companies were releasing their models out to the world, NVIDIA sort of was the company that was giving out GPUs that a lot of these companies take in order to train the models and also run inference on them, right? This is the tech that we use to generate the tokens and help these models function. Now you got to remember, the Anthropic CEO made a comment about like NVIDIA when they were selling their chips to China, which NVIDIA is not totally allowed to sell their stuff to China. Actually, the government steps in and prevents a lot of those H200 chips from going to China because people in the US government are scared that if you give enough to China, they'll make stuff that immediately destroys us in terms of the performance, efficiency, and overall quality, which I think is a serious concern to have. The Anthropic CEO was like, it's kind of like selling nuclear weapons to North Korea and then bragging that the missile casings are made by Boeing. Now, again, I find this laughably hilarious from a company that, even if they didn't want the US government to use their tech to bomb people on the other side of the world, it still happens. In fact, I'm making a video actually talking more about the Skynet situation we're in and a lot of these American companies like contributing to that, right? Like we live in an age where Skynet is a very fucking real thing. And unfortunately, no matter what morals you have, both sides of the aisle are going to be using this shit in a very offensive capacity. The only reason that I'm somewhat okay with China doing this is because, unlike the American companies, most of the Chinese labs are releasing this shit basically for free. Now, DeepSeek's one of those things where you can actually download it right now over Hugging Face. You can see literally like about 30 people have downloaded something that's like 862 billion parameters. The largest shit is like 1.7 trillion. So you're not going to be able to run this on your actual computers. Okay, this model will not run unless you have like tens of thousands of dollars, more than that, of actual hardware compute. The important thing is, unlike companies like ChatGPT or Anthropic, these guys have released their actual flagship like model, the same shit that runs in the cloud, available freely for you to download if you have the capability of running it. And it's one of the reasons why companies like Olama, which allow you to run models on your own system through their software, have, from my understanding, just downloaded and run this on their system, and they're providing people access through an API. So to show you guys like the power of some of these models, right, I'm going to just walk you through, not DeepSeek, because I'm not necessarily connecting to anything that I'm not running locally, simply because I like to keep things running locally on my system as much as I can. But to show you an example, right, this is Claude Opus, and I asked it, can you write me a solar system simulation in a single HTML file? Now you can see that I asked it to do it, and in about a minute it generated this solar system simulation. So you can see Mercury whipping around, you can see Neptune's just slowly moving. It's moving, but it's going to take some time. Now I figured, okay, what if I asked a local artificial intelligence model to do the same thing? So here I have my local model. This is a Quen model that's running, and you can see an open code, right? Like this is an open code model. I asked it the same thing. I'm like, can you write me a solar system simulation in a single file? So it reasons it. It writes the whole thing about I want to say how many lines here? 370 lines. And it did this all in about less than 3 minutes. So in less than 3 minutes, it generated all of this shit for us to see. So how did it do? Well, let me open up the file right over here. It did this without ever connecting to the internet, without ever giving up my data. And lo and behold, it actually produced something that I think is maybe a little bit better than the Opus model. So you can see that I can also drag around. You can see that it's got trails, it's got labels, it's got orbits that it can show, and I can make this faster, I can make it slower, and of course I can look around the galaxy to a limited extent. I think the quality of it is actually impressive. Another situation I asked a weaker model to do was do the same thing, and it actually made it it actually gave it a glittery background like sky, like a galaxy with glimmering stars, added an asteroid belt for really no reason, but I can always just remove that myself because I know that doesn't make sense, or I can prompt the AI and say, bro, you added an asteroid belt, fucking get rid of that shit. But you can see that the local stuff, and again, this is a very simple thing. It's not bad. It's actually not half bad. It's actually to a point that if you're somebody that needs to use AI to work, because I think really it's a technology that exists, everyone needs it now. You're going to be basically chopping your limbs off in the workspace if you don't use this. Unfortunately, that's the world we've headed to. And now that these technologies are out and available to download, you can't just stop them. It'd be one thing if these AI companies were only online, locked behind service providers, and one day humanity was like, destroy the AI companies, destroy the tech, nobody can access this. But ever since DeepSeek and a lot of these models have been downloadable by everybody, you've gotten to a point where people can use these models and achieve some pretty good, nearly state-of-the-art performance, all freely available, downloadable, and at some point in the future, no matter how you cut it, you'll be able to access this shit on, cheaper and cheaper and more accessible hardware, right? It used to be back in the day, 10 years ago, something new would pop in. You need to buy the newest piece of hardware, but 10 years down the road, especially when efficiency is factored in, it makes it so that it's easier to get access to. And that's where the AI bubble story kind of comes in, right? You're never going to get rid of artificial intelligence. But right now, a few companies have found a way to sort of take this technology and almost price people out of it. So for instance, while DeepSeek isn't blowing anybody away because right now in a preliminary benchmark, it's sitting at around number 20. In fact, the version of Quen that I'm using, the max version, is only above it. And while a lot of these companies are still leading the charge in terms of being the proprietary company behind it, you can see that, for instance, Claude is pricing it at 5 by $25. So it's a lot of money as compared to something like DeepSeek, which is coming in at literally a fraction of the cost. Obviously, better models, even like GLM, is coming at it with a fraction of the cost. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of moving parts in the story, but ultimately, look, no matter what side you're on, it's a good thing to see that there is actual competition, and at least one country, not America, is putting a lot of that control and ownership into the hands of people. I don't know. Again, there's no altruistic benefit. A lot of this is, in my opinion, to almost, decimate an American market. If they can develop something that is as good as what you're able to buy at the big frontier models, eventually down the road. Remember, this stuff only trails like 6 to a year behind at best nowadays. So if we're getting to a point where eventually these people will really close that gap to the point where a free model, a downloadable model, is as good as what you can use in the big space, and it's more efficient and cheaper to use, that is what's going to actually bring these prices down and get some of these companies to actually either reassess how much they're spending or reassess if they're even going to be here. And maybe, just maybe, that might make it so that the hardware that is so out of our reach right now may crash down and become more freely available in the fucking market. Look, DeepSeek came out again today, and the story could have been, wow, it completely decimated the industry one more time. But really, that's not the story. The story is, it's one of several companies that are out there bringing the fucking charge against these big frontier guys that have been doing nothing but fucking us in our ass for the last few months, basically by assisting other companies into killing the labor force, basically taking this technology that I think should be freely accessible to everyone into a paid-for monstrosity that's getting more expensive as the weeks go by. And really the only counter to that is another country in the other side of the world that has about as much money, if not more than the United States, to throw around in the space, and their companies are releasing this shit freely and accessible for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and yeah, another little AI rant, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I like showing you this technology like I showed you with OpenCode, and the fact that even on these basic things, we're reaching a point where the stuff is actually usable. These same models can function on a laptop in some cases, provided that laptop has enough memory, and you can use this without the internet, anywhere in the world, and in a lot of ways, privacy focused, right? So again, this entire prompt, this HTML, didn't send a lick of data over to China, didn't send a lick of data over to the Americans. And ultimately, look, in a world where a lot of developers who are just graduating, even out of the top universities, who are unable to get jobs, this might be the only way you can close the gap and develop something on your own terms without paying for things that are getting constantly more expensive. I mean, look, even if you can't afford the hardware to run this stuff, which most people can, you can still get an API key that you will overall spend substantially less in comparison to the bigger models out there. Again, competition is great. This is a perfect example of why competition is the best fucking thing imaginable. But ladies and gentlemen, wild day today. The bubble keeps getting pressure added to it, and that is the best thing to see. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it, dislike it. I am out. Today's video is brought to you by our friends over at Brilliant, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want to learn things like mathematics, data science, or computer science in an interactive, fun manner at your own pace?